Hey, everybody. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. It is me, Legal Vices, on a beautiful sunny Sunday afternoon here in Busan, Korea. It is 2 p.m. The weather outside is nice and sunny, and I'm staying here in my house because I'm a hermit loser. Uh, but welcome aboard, everybody. We've got a little group here waiting. Gosh, now do a few little background things here before we hit into this. Oh, there's a competition to see who will be the first super chat. Well, that's pretty damn awesome. Update on that. The when YouTube updates their, because you have to get 4,000 hours watched. When YouTube updates it, they're about 2 or 3 days behind. And my big day was last Friday. So I should have about 11,000 viewing hours from last Friday. But they haven't updated it yet. I would assume probably in the next 24 hours, YouTube will update the hours watched, and then I'll be able to apply for monetization, and then they'll review it. And if they deem me worthy of their efforts to make more money for themselves, then they'll let me join in. They said the review can take anywhere from 20 minutes to a month. So we'll just have to see. I'll keep you posted. In the meantime, feel free to pledge away. Pledge to your heart's content. Another background little backstage piece of work we to do. Like I said, this huge jump in subscriptions and things was thrust upon me literally on the spur of the moment. So I'm still dealing with things. I've sent out a few feelers for mods. I need to get a few more mods. So if there's anybody that feels particularly moddy and would like to act as a mod for the channel, go to the About section for my channel. My email address is there, and shoot me an email and just let me know what your YouTube chat ID link is, and then we can copy and paste that. I'll see it. Particularly people in Asia and Europe and Asia Pacific or Australasia, around this area, for the time frame factor. And I know we have a lot of viewers from Ireland and England and places, Scotland, places over that way. So those people too, as well as just anybody, just drop me an email. Let me send me the link to your chat ID, and that will be a great help. Also, again, because it's just little old me sitting here, we've got bunches of people and bunches of comments. So I have, unfortunately, just for my own sanity, I've slowed down the chat like once every 60 seconds, and I put a subscriber only, but only a 1 minute buffer. So there's only like a 1 minute buffer there. So if you haven't subscribed, please like and subscribe to this video. Well, subscribe to my channel, like the video. If you subscribe, just got to wait 1 minute and then you can chat. Like I said, I will probably remove all of those restrictions once I get a little bit of mod help and figure out how well it's going to work out. But other than that, I think we're doing pretty good. Anything else I need to talk about? Again, thank everybody for coming. This is still insane to me, and so I'm loving it. We've got Max Mura saying, you may only get seen if you view the channel from a desktop browser. Ah, okay. Well, let me, I will post my email address right here, and you can copy and paste that. And again, if I had a mod to do this for me, the mod could do it, but that's sort of a cyclical tautological argument there. To get the email address, you have to be a mod, and to get the mod, you have to be an email address. Anyway, my email address for this channel is coming into the post here. It's the Legal Vices at gmail.com. I'll just send that here into the chat. The Legal Vices at gmail.com. All right, we got people. Hello from Ireland, upstate New York. Everybody's popping in here. So yeah, anybody that has a desire to be a mod, just kind of, I won't even say send your application. just shoot me an email and we'll pick through and we'll work on it. All right. Gosh. Now, what I was planning on doing, we did this yesterday. We went through Johnny Depp's closing statements, and we got through them okay. But today, I've sort of kind of made the I wanted to do Amber Heard's full opening closing statements today, but because they were such horrifically bad time managers, their closing statements went incredibly long. So I'm gonna break this into two sections. We'll do Rottenborn's closing first, and then I don't know, sometime later tonight or about this time tomorrow, we'll do a live stream of reviewing Elaine's closing statements, because the both sides were allotted 2 hours each to do their closing statements. The team for Johnny Depp, they came in at about 1 hour and 25 minutes for their first part of the closing statements. And then, so that gives them about, I think it was 36 minutes to do a rebuttal to the closing statements. But Team Amber, they didn't manage their time so well. They used 1 hour and 54 minutes during their initial closing statements, which left them only 6 minutes to rebut anything that Johnny Depp's team has to say. So what we've got is about 2 hours of closing statements, and I want to limit this stream to 2 hours, but also, all right, got time to take the hat off. It's annoying me with the earphones. The earphones keep slipping. All right. Shouldn't wear a hat in the house anyway, my mom used to tell me. So we'll go through Rottenborn's closing, and I want to be able to pause and stop, and I guess kind of the same thing, huh? I want to stop and comment on some things and offer some other comments, but if we do the whole 2 hour closing, we're not going to have any time to do that. So let's just do that. Let's do ye olde Rottenborn's first thing. I guess we can get rid of Max's comments. And again, I apologize that I'm not going to be able to see each and every one of these comments like I used to, because it's just out of my control at this point. So, let's jump into this then, and see what. Let's make our little comments here as we go along, and I'll try to pay as much attention to the chats as possible. And again, a lot of what Rottenborn and Elaine did was kind of lengthy, so we can still probably talk over a little bit of that. Okay. Let me just clean up some stuff here so we can go through it. There we go. That's the window we need. I've got windows all over the place here. I hope this is the window we need. Yep, this is the window we need. All right. Popping in, good night, y'all, says Rebecca. You suck, get control. Yeah, well, that's what happens when you're thrown headfirst into a shit show like this was. We've got it on top. All right. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, let's start with ye olde closing arguments by Mr. Rottenborn, which again, I will go to my grave saying that is the most Dickensian bad name for a lawyer, Mr. Rottenborn.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think we're having any boomer issues with the audio. Just to make sure I'm not an idiot like I've been the past 2 days, give me some thumbs up if we can all hear this. And again, nobody's talking right now, so. Lothar Hines, Utah, repping for Utah. Go Aggies.
Mr. Rutmore, is your mic on?
I believe it is.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Does that work? In trying to convince you that Mr. Depp has carried his burden of proof in proving that he was never abusive to Amber on even one occasion. Think about the message that Mr. Depp and his attorneys are sending to Amber, and by extension to every victim of domestic abuse everywhere. If you didn't take pictures, it didn't happen. If you did take pictures, they're fake. If you didn't tell your friends, you're lying. And if you did tell your friends, they're part of the hoax. If you didn't seek medical treatment, you weren't injured.
Now, I get what he's trying to do here. I get what he's trying to do. He's trying to say, look, their whole case is built around this idea that she didn't take any of the pictures. She didn't tell anybody. He's saying that victims tend to hide from. They don't advertise it. They do, but in this case, it doesn't work. It doesn't work because he's not saying to all victims of abuse everywhere that if you don't tell anybody, it didn't happen. If you didn't take pictures of it, it didn't happen. I mean, this is a case where she's taking pictures of the floor, the walls, the mirrors, the chip of wood taken from the bed rather than the blood-soaked pillows she tested about. Just if you recall, for the bed, there was like the little chip of wood missing, but she also testified that not only did Johnny Depp break the bed, there was blood-soaked pillows and clumps of hair. If you're taking pictures of the bed and not the blood-soaked pillows, it kind of makes me question whether the blood-soaked pillows are there. If he held you hostage and terrorized you for 3 days and assaulted you repeatedly, physically, verbally, and penetration with whiskey bottles, and you take a picture of a mirror and a couple of pieces of broken glass and not these horrific injuries to you, that kind of makes me doubt you. If you have all of these arguments and the only one that's really being abusive on the audio tapes is you, that kind of makes me wonder. And if you don't tell anybody, I mean, that's the thing. That doesn't bother me as much, but when you can't bring in a single witness to corroborate that any of this happened at any time, that's a problem. So I think he's not being the best advocate, I think, here, because that's not anything remotely what Team Depp was saying. He wasn't saying if you lie about it, if you didn't take pictures, it didn't happen. If you don't tell somebody, it didn't happen. Not my favorite thing. Now, some people have been saying the video is low. Yeah, that's just the court video. It is just really low. That's the court volume is bumped as far as I can get it up.
If you did seek medical treatment, you're crazy. If you do everything that you can to help your spouse, the person that you love, rid himself of the crushing drug and alcohol abuse that spins him into an abusive, rage-filled monster, you're a nag. And if you finally decide that enough is enough, you've had enough of the fear, enough of the pain, and you have to leave to save yourself, you're a gold digger. That is the message that Mr. Depp is asking you to send. But he doesn't stop there, because in Mr. Depp's world, you don't leave Mr. Depp. And if you do, he will start a campaign of global humiliation against you.
Started a campaign of global humiliation.
This very day.
What global humiliation did he start?
To destroy your life, to destroy your career. That is what they are saying, ladies and gentlemen. And that's what they're trying to get you, the jury, to be an accomplice to. But it's not surprising, because Mr. Depp cannot and will not take responsibility for his own actions. It's always someone else's fault.
Yeah, about that. Johnny Depp never takes responsibility for his actions, and it's always somebody else's fault. Close your eyes and think who that reminds you of most. Yeah, that's pretty much exactly his client, isn't it? Johnny Depp, from the beginning, he was the one that first put out on his direct on his case in chief, his team was the one that got into the drugs and the alcohol and the the swearing and the breaking stuff first. They put it out there first. They're not denying it happened. He's not denying it happened. He got in front of it and said, yeah, I'm a shitty human being. I've got the drug problem, the alcohol problem, the anger management problem. I break stuff, but I didn't do that. I didn't. That's what he's saying. But if Amber, her testimony was, in which I thought Camille did a fantastic job of pointing out, which we mentioned yesterday. Amber's is everybody else is lying. I'm the only one telling the truth. Amber, and again, I put out this challenge. It hasn't been picked up yet in the 4 or 5 times I've made this challenge. Challenge anybody watching now to go back through the trial testimony and find a single instance where Amber Heard has said, other than the few times on the audio tapes where she was apologizing, just outside of this, anytime she said, I did this horrible thing, or I did this bad thing, or I did this wrong thing. I haven't seen a single statement, and nobody else has put a statement up like that, has sent a statement to me. That's my challenge. Find a statement where she admitted to doing something bad or wrong. So this whole idea that Johnny Depp is the one that's terrorizing and placing the blame is just not supported by any evidence at all in this trial. Let's see who has the accountability.
Just as Ms. Vasquez did, and Mr. Chu did, I would like to extend my thanks to you on behalf of Amber and our whole legal team for the care and the diligence with which you have served as jurors in this matter. You've paid attention to every witness, every piece of evidence, and I can't even imagine the sacrifice that you've made in terms of time away from.
Okay, Georgina Archer mentioned that she said that she hit him when it was on the stairs, but she did it to, that was part of my clarification yesterday. I guess when you're trying to find a statement where she admitted to doing something or hitting him, or it was always in a self-defense thing. And that when she was defending her sister, so that doesn't really count. And this is a very good thing. I mean, it's just a standard thing that all lawyers do. They thank the jury for their time. They thank them for their client. And dang, if we have any time left over the end, we'll talk about Elaine. we'll talk about her at the end, or probably my ADHD will kick in and we'll spend 45 minutes talking about her if I get involved in it now.
From your friends, your family, your job, to be here on this jury. It's a very important role that you're serving, and we thank you very much. Let's pick up where we started 6 weeks ago in opening statement. You may remember that I asked you to keep a simple question in mind, which is, why are you here? And much of what you've heard during the course of this trial, you don't need to make a decision on in order to return a verdict for Ms. Heard on Mr. Depp's claim of defamation. Now, we'll talk about Ms. Heard's claim of defamation against Mr. Depp, and Elaine will address most of that in a few minutes.
Few minutes? I don't think so.
Your key question to answer is, does the First Amendment give Ms. Heard the right to write the words that she wrote in this article on December 18th, 2018? That's the question.
That's a good question.
And you cannot simultaneously protect and uphold the First Amendment and find in favor of Johnny Depp on this claim. You simply cannot. You have to decide, should someone be able to write an article like that in the United States of America without being sued successfully, without having to go through the hell that Ms. Heard has gone through? So let's talk about that. And to do that, we get to explain a bit more about the law that you have to follow. This is the op-ed piece. I'm not going to read it to you again. You heard me read it to you in opening statements. And I would urge you, when you're in the deliberation room, read it. Read it again. And I know we focused on it, here and there over the course of the trial, but the vast majority of this trial has not focused on these words, on this piece. This is obviously the paper edition. There's the online edition as well. Now we get a chance to discuss with you exactly what you have to find about this article. Let's try this again. This is one of the jury instructions that you'll get. And I've been so looking forward to.
Now, this is something interesting, which we talked about this. We talked about this yesterday, how I thought it was a very good idea what Ben Chu did yesterday when we did through this, was that he laid out the scenario and then he applied it to the jury instructions at the end. He walked through the jury instructions and checked off the boxes and said, okay, what about this? You know, question number 1, question number 2, yes. Question number 3, yes. And so therefore, when you answer all of these questions this way, you have to return a judgment in favor of my client. Now, Rottenborn is taking the opposite. He's front loading the jury instructions. And the problem that I can see with doing that is by the end of the closing statements, by the end of his closing statements, you've forgotten what the point was. The questions are likely out of your mind by the time they get this finished. Whereas with Johnny Depp's side, that was the very last thing. Just a comment.
To being able to actually explain to you, as the judge read all the instructions to you this morning, and I know it was a lot, but we've been looking forward to being able to explain to you what you're here to decide. Because I imagine for some of the case, it's been kind of unclear. What are you being asked to decide?
Max Murrow was asking, can anyone tell me about the crazy cat lady meme with Elaine? Haven't seen the source. That was just kind of somewhere around the commentator. Someone said she looks like the crazy cat lady from The Simpsons, and then it kind of stuck. Hit the like button, guys. You guys are so awesome. Please, I'm so horrible at self-promotion, but I guess I need to do more of that.
These are the things that you have to find, and you have to answer yes. As Mr. Chu said, you have to answer yes to all of them in order to find in favor of Mr. Depp. So you have to find that the statement was about Mr. Depp, and you can decide that in the context of the article. And I'll get to the arguments that Mr. Depp raises on that in a minute. You also have to find that the statement is false. And we're going to look at the statements here. We're going to look at each of the 3 statements. And in order to win his claim, Mr. Depp has to prove every single element. And there's a concept in the jury instructions that you really didn't hear from Mr. Depp's side this morning, but you've all heard it, I'm sure, outside the courtroom, which is burden of proof. It is Mr. Depp's burden to prove each and every one of these elements.
Mm-hmm. True.
If he cannot, Ms. Heard wins. If he cannot prove each and every one of these elements under the burden of proof that's applicable, Ms. Heard wins. There's 2 different burdens of proof that we'll get to. For all of them except number 7, the burden of proof is greater weight of the evidence. So you weigh the evidence and you decide, has Mr. Depp proven to you the first 6 elements? The 7th one, for actual malice, the clear and convincing evidence standard, we'll get to in a few minutes. But this is what he has to prove. And he cannot do that.
Well, let's see if he can do that or not. I mean, you know.
These are the 3 statements.
Okay, as we go forward here, at least the nice halo hairstyle. Yep, Amber's been gray through the whole thing, but I did like how Camille finished on this angelic white, Joan of Arc crusader kind of image. That was good. But now Rottenborn's style is a bit dry. But also Ben Chu's style is a little dry, but Ben Chu just comes across as a little more uncle-y or grandpa-y or warm. Rottenborn is not a bad lawyer, I believe. I mean, he's obviously better than me because he's representing superstar clients, but I mean, he doesn't come across as bad. He doesn't come across as really lacking much. It's just he's undynamic, I think, and then whatever energy he has probably gets sucked out from Elaine's attitude, behavior, and arguing style, which is why I really thought Elaine would go first. I thought Elaine would go first for Amber's team in the closing because she's clearly unlikable as a lawyer in this case. And she's scatterbrained a little bit. She's not clear. She's not focused. I thought he would come later to sort of clean it up, tie everything together, sort of take the taste of Elaine out of your mouth, and then hand it over to the jury. But they flip-flopped. They went the other way.
And I know you may be thinking to yourself, wait a second, don't we have to decide if Mr. Depp committed abuse? And the answer is no, you don't have to, because these three statements, you can decide as a matter of law, or as a matter of fact, as you weigh the evidence and the fact that they're true. So the first two statements I'm going to address together. Then 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse, and I felt the full force of our culture's wrath for women who speak out. Number two, I had the rare vantage point of seeing in real time how institutions protect men accused of abuse. When you go back to the jury room to deliberate, you should feel free, like I said, to read the article and think of the article's purpose. The jury instructions also tell you to take these statements in the context of the article. Think about the purpose. The purpose of the article was to promote legislative measures designed to protect victims of domestic abuse, designed to protect people who did exactly what Ms. Heard did, to speak out. That's apparent on the face of the article. And to do that, Ms. Heard talked about her own life experiences as someone who had obtained a TRO against Mr. Depp, someone who had accused Mr. Depp of domestic violence. Make no mistake, and Mr. Depp's side keeps trying to say that we're somehow suggesting that.
Okay, I've taken off slow mode.
That Ms. Heard hadn't had anything to do with Mr. Depp. We're not saying that. You heard it. Ms. Heard herself say, of course, 2 years before I wrote this article, I felt the full force of our culture's wrath for women who speak out after she obtained a temporary restraining order against Mr. Depp, after she became a public figure representing domestic abuse. But the words that she wrote here, and then chronicling her own experience after that, those words are true. Those words are true. Similarly, the rare vantage point of seeing, based on her own experiences post May 27th, 2016, how institutions protect men accused of abuse, those words are true. And
how are they true? That's what I'm not getting, and it's something I just saw that mentioned a few seconds ago in chat as well. Where has it been shown that Johnny Depp was protected by anything? Where was he protected in all of this? I think we've pretty much seen that he was crushed by all of this. Yeah, so show me where it's vilified her and protected him from these allegations. That is a really weak argument.
The First Amendment protects Ms. Heard's right to say them. Now, the third statement is absolutely true as well, but we're going to take that separately because she didn't write it. Under the First Amendment, the statements have to be false in order for Mr. Depp to win. Now, plaintiff addresses, like I said, an argument that we're not making. And as I said, we're not running from the fact that when she discussed becoming a public figure representing domestic abuse, Amber was speaking of her experiences reporting domestic abuse against Johnny Depp. She admitted to that, but that doesn't make the article or the statements about Johnny Depp.
I really hate this, and I'm sure the jury is not that dumb. As I've said from the beginning, there's not a single person that's read that article that was saying, wait, is that abuse about Johnny Depp? Who's that about? I wonder who that abuse is about.
Think about it. Think about every piece of evidence that you've heard over the last 6 weeks about his abuse, about their relationship. None of that is in the article. None of it. We all know that it would be a very different article if she had written about what she suffered, that she's told you about over the last 6 weeks. Because he knows the words are true, Mr. Depp says that the words now have a defamatory implication. He says the statements are the same as saying, Johnny Depp abused me.
Well, it's exactly what it's saying. I've suffered abuse for, this. 2 years ago, I was in this situation. That's exactly what it's saying. That article is saying, I was abused by Johnny Depp. Now, because of that, I'm coming forward and I'm the voice for violence and victims. You do not have to say Johnny Depp to say Johnny Depp. And that's where this whole thing, she put this in, obviously she said that the ACLU helped with the drafting of this, the American Civil Liberties Union. They helped draft this. And, and I think they testified that Johnny Depp they wanted to put his name in there. But then the lawyer said, well, let's not put his name in there because we might get our asses sued off. And so they took his name out, but you can still take the name out without taking the name out. They thought just like being clever and not saying his name would be enough to protect him from the lawsuit like this. It wasn't.
But just because he wants to make the article about himself doesn't mean it is. He has to show you that any defamatory implication was designed and intended. Look at number 4, designed and intended by Ms. Heard to convey the defamatory meaning that he suggests. Just because people might read the article and remember, oh,
do you think that saying I was a victim of this 2 years ago and before, do you think that was designed and intended to say that he did this? I've got to say yes. I'd like to see him be a little more. I mean, if he wants to convince people, he's got to be a little more passionate than this.
oh yeah, Amber Heard used to be married to Johnny Depp, and she accused him of abuse. That doesn't mean that she designed and intended defamatory implications in writing about herself. And think about it. If Mr. Depp is right, then virtually any statement that anyone could ever make about their own life that implies anything, implies any involvement with any other person, could be defamatory. And that's
wrong only if it's true. Only if it's not true. Only if it's not true. If it's true that he did these things, then she can say it. Truth is an absolute defense.
That's clearly not what the First Amendment intends. She didn't design and intend the words to be the equivalent of writing Johnny Depp abused me. And you don't have to take her words for it. You can take the words of Terrence Doherty of the ACLU. He said that the op-ed wasn't even Ms. Heard's idea. The ACLU wrote the first draft, and great care was taken in drafting the article so as not to make it about Mr. Depp.
Not great enough.
Ms. Heard's relationship with him. That's the only evidence presented about Ms. Heard's motive, except her statements that was exactly what she wanted to do. She wanted to talk about her experiences after Johnny Depp. She wanted to own her story after Johnny Depp and fit those into
after Johnny Depp, what
other people
allegedly beat the crap out of her for years and years and years, and
they suffer. And then talk about legislative measures that could help protect people in those positions. That's what she meant, and that's what the article is about. There's no hidden meaning here, ladies and gentlemen. This isn't a hit piece on Johnny Depp. This isn't a hit piece on Johnny Depp. And you can end here. You can end there.
I will agree. The article is not a hit piece on Johnny Depp. It's not a hit piece on Johnny Depp. It's a drive-by shooting on Johnny Depp. You know, she's talking about it, and it is largely not about him, but that's what he's saying. He's saying the whole article isn't about me. These three sentences, these three statements are about me. Georgina Archer makes a point. It's like men have to keep the secret because they won't be seen as a real man. Sad, but it happens to men, women, and children. Abuse is abuse. Well, that's exactly the point that Camille was making when she was playing the audio tape that we've all heard 100 million times, where he's saying it's the hysterical whine move. Yeah, go ahead. Be a real man. Be a real husband. Be a pussy. Go over to the other house. Run away. Be a real man. Who's going to, and then they preface that with the other one. Yeah, go ahead. Tell them, Johnny. Tell them. Are they going to believe you? Who are they going to believe? They're going to believe that a man is a victim. That audio right there was exactly what Georgina is saying. You're not a real man if you don't stick around and fight. You're not a real man if you try to get out of the situation. And if you stay and do get involved in something, nobody's going to believe you. This is definitely going to do some damage to women in these situations, I believe, because they're going to be worried now more than ever that they're going to be seen as a liar if they do. You know, if just because of win or lose, regardless of which side comes down, people are going to may be comparing it to, a case like this where, okay, yeah, we've seen Amber Heard, so yeah, maybe we'll be less inclined to believe her. That, I think, is going to be the bad thing that comes out of this. And maybe a good thing that comes out of this is people are going to probably start paying a little more attention to the issue of men being the victims of violence. Let's keep going.
The statements that she wrote were not false, and the First Amendment protects them.
You didn't prove that.
Let's talk about the headline for a minute. The headline that was published in the online version only of the article on December 18th, 2018, said, "I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath." A few points here. Number one, and this evidence is undisputed. There's no dispute about this. So as you weigh the evidence, you don't have to check your common sense at the door, and you can weigh circumstantial evidence, you can weigh facts, but you can't see evidence where no evidence exists. And the undisputed evidence here is that Ms. Heard didn't write the headline. She didn't approve the headline. She had nothing to do with it. She was not given notice of the headline. She testified, you saw her testify about the sexual assault that she experienced at the hands of Mr. Depp. You saw her testify about that.
All right. The problem I have with that statement, I mean, it's generally the case that the author of the article doesn't write the headline. They have a headline editor or a copy editor that does that at the news sources. But the problems I have is the headline didn't say, Amber Heard is this. It says I, and her name is on the byline. She's the author of the article. She's the named author of the article. The headline says I did that. She didn't disavow this headline after. She didn't say, I never said that. That's not me. She never said that. She didn't disavow it. She didn't ask for a correction. She didn't ask for a retraction, as far as I know. And the second thing, the second point is, not only did she not disavow it, she retweeted it with the article headline. And that was the whole discussion, whether she republished it. And if you claim something defames you and you republish it, or if you attribute something and you pass it along, you're sort of you're agreeing with the statement. You're spreading, you're disseminating the statement out. And that's what she did. This annoys me.
That they're calling her a liar. You saw her on the stand testify with your own mouth, with her own mouth, exactly what she went through for the first time in court, because people who have suffered that, they don't want to broadcast that to the world. They want to penalize Ms. Heard for not speaking about that earlier. That's ridiculous.
The people that want to penalize her at this point are the people that want to penalize her for freaking lying about it. As I've said from day one, if there was any evidence I would consider to be credible and convincing that Johnny Depp did any of these things she said, I think Johnny Depp should be buried 6 feet under a prison somewhere. People are upset at her because she hasn't supported any of this.
And it's insulting, and it's just victim blaming at its most disgusting.
No, it isn't. It's liar blaming at his best.
Sexual assault.
What she's doing is disgusting, I believe.
The op-ed is sexual assault that she said she had experienced by the time she was of college age, before Mr. Depp. So there is a reference to sexual violence in that article, but it's not by Mr. Depp.
But it didn't happen 2 years ago when she said she became the voice for this thing. She didn't say, I became the voice of this because of something that happened when I was in college or when I was pre-college age.
Mr. Depp can't hold her liable for a headline she didn't write that contains something that had nothing, that was not about him. And they want you to think that she republished the headline.
Yes.
Republished the headline by tweeting out the link to the online version.
Yes.
So let's look at this. This is the tweet that she sent on December 19th.
Today, I published this op-ed. Which op-ed? The op-ed written below there with that statement. Okay. Yep, she posted this about the women who are channeling their rage about violence and inequality into political strength, despite the price of coming forward.
The hyperlink says, opinion Amber Heard, I spoke up against sexual violence. That's the online version of the article. As Ms. Heard said, you can't attach, you can't tweet a piece of paper.
Yes, but you don't have to link to the article if you don't want to republish it. You can say, "Hey, there's an article about me in the news. There's this great little article."
So when she wanted to share that she had written this article, what choice does she have?
She has the choice not to put the link in the article. She can say, "Hey, there's a newspaper article over here." Or I think she could even say, "There's a newspaper article I wrote over at X news media outlet."
Has to attach that link. And the jury instructions that you have make clear that a hyperlink is not republication. Forwarding a link on does not mean that you broadcast the statement again, but that's what they want to make you think. The only
that I'm not real sure about. My recollection, this is the interesting thing about the jury instructions. I have to go through and read. I don't believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because at this point, if you saw the stream where if you saw the live stream over at the Renegade Law when I was on with Nick, I was coming out of 12 hours sleep in 7 days, and I kind of started to get the nods about this point. I kind of I vanished from the earth for about 20 minutes during this. So if I recall correctly in my stupor, the jury instruction wasn't that it simply linking and keeping the hyperlink in a tweet didn't republish. I think it was said this is up to the jury to decide. It's an issue for the jury to decide. I can't remember what the actual instructions were regarding the hyperlink.
way, and the jury instructions that you have, and we don't need to read through them in detail now, but the republication instruction says that merely linking to an article does not amount to republication, but adding content to a linked article.
Okay, that's what it was. It doesn't amount, just doing it doesn't amount to it, but adding content. That's the point that got me, yeah.
Article may constitute republication.
Adding content to the article. I'm going to argue that her putting it wasn't just a straight hyperlink that she sent out. She added her comments to it. That I wrote this. I did this. This is why I wrote it. To me, that's adding content.
You must determine whether any added content was intended to reach a new audience. And if you find any content added to the hyperlink was intended to reach a new audience, it constitutes a republication.
Depp. And number
look
three,
at me.
the
Look what I
statement-
did. I'm an idiot. I tried to pause it and I hit the other deal. So let's fast forward back to where we were.
You can decide that by determining that those statements are true
Shite.
and
However.
protected by the First Amendment.
But yeah.
Mr. Depp brought this case and he's...
Yeah. Did I accidentally come right back to where we were? How awesome am I? I think it's just a little bit up here. Here we go. Sorry about all of that. I went nuts. So yeah, this statement, I think,
control, she said, was drastic, and it was
added
composed
to
of things
it,
such as possessive jealousy,
and I want
imbalance of
just
power,
let's kind of back
not only
a
in physical
little
stature
bit.
and physical size, but in where they were in their absolutely not.
All right, this is what I wanted. Like, where we're talking about is, does any of this add content? What the judge was saying in the jury instructions is if she had said nothing and simply retweeted the link, that would not necessarily amount to republishing. The instruction was something to the effect of, if you add anything to it that's designed to reach a new audience, then that could constitute, which would be a decision for the jury to decide, could constitute a new audience and intent to reach a new audience. And I would say that it was clearly an attempt to republish and reach a new and different audience than the actual article, because the people that read that article are not the same people that connects with her. She wanted to get it to more people than it would ordinarily and organically get to, and she added her 2 cents to it. She changed essentially a little bit of the content, I believe, by saying, today I published this op-ed in the Washington Post about the women who are channeling their... I think she's adding content to it in an attempt to distribute it widely to a different audience, to a larger and broader audience than would normally have read the Washington Post article itself. Now let's listen to this again. And before we get back, there's more questions about super chatting and things. Again, I'm working desperately on this, on the monetization thing. It's just a matter of time, I hope. I should be able to apply for monetization sometime in the next 24 hours, and then it could take up to a month to review. And even at the end of the month, they could say, we don't like your content and you suck and you're too, you're too based and controversial and anti-Amber Heard or whatever. We just don't want to have anything to do with you. So, and then I have to reapply again. But if everything goes well, sometime between the next 24 hours and then a month from now, I should be monetized, and you can throw stacks of cash at me and I'll be grateful. But in the meantime, because I personally believe that pledges and donations are the same, just like Amber, feel free to pledge away any amount you want, and I will gratefully accept your pledges. And for the new folks that have got here, don't forget to like and subscribe. That would be greatly appreciated. Little thumbs up is kind of taking the place of cash, so I'm happy with that. I don't expect anything, but I would just appreciate the like and a subscribe if you haven't already done so. Subscribe. It's on subscriber only mode again, just to sort of kind of have some control until I can get some mods set up, which should happen in the next day or so. So just subscribe, and if you want to make a comment, you only have to wait 1 minute. So let's jump back into and to see if while he explains this, if you guys feel that these comments she made up there, a different audience.
You'll remember his expert, Shannon Curry, agreed with all that abuse can take many forms. And you'll remember that Don Hughes, Ms. Heard's expert, talked about the reports of intimate partner violence by Ms. Heard, characterized by physical violence, psychological aggression, sexual violence, coercive control, and surveillance behaviors. She tested Ms. Heard. She said that the tests show that there's a high degree of serious violence perpetrated by Mr. Depp toward Ms. Heard. She got that opinion and that impression by reviewing the medical records of Ms. Heard. She talked about the role of coercive control that Mr. Depp exercised over Ms. Heard. The effect of coercive control, she said, was drastic, and it was composed of things such as possessive jealousy, the imbalance of power, not only in physical stature and physical size, but in where they were in their life, in their career.
No thanks. Got one of my own.
She said writing obscene messages to your partner can absolutely be intimidating behavior. She said that Mr. Depp, after reviewing the evidence, banging and throwing and hitting things in the household, that's psychological aggression. Punching a wall, throwing something, screaming, that is abuse. That's abuse, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, what do y'all think about that? I mean, me setting my old fucker ways, to me, yelling things, sending tweets to friends or sending emails to friends or quotes or, messages to friends or saying that doesn't seem like abuse to me. Is intimidation abuse? Where do you draw the line? I'm not sure. But banging cabinets, breaking his own stuff, to me, that is him trying desperately not to be abusive towards her. That's him breaking his own stuff so he doesn't break her stuff or break her. That's kind of how I'm looking at it, that these things are his outlet, so he doesn't engage in the behavior that he's been alleged to have done. I mean, what do you guys think? Is breaking stuff and yelling And does this stuff constitute abuse? It's a hard line for me to draw because I don't know. Some of it clearly no. Some of it maybe, probably yes. But where's that line? And did he cross it? That's a valid, legit thing that I think needs to be discussed a little bit. Yeah, if I was on the receiving end, I mean, it can be scary when someone, my father was verbally abusive, and it can be scary when someone's yelling at you, but then again, if you punch a wall, is it better to punch the wall than somebody? I just don't know. I don't think you can do it as black and white statement that yes, all yelling is abuse, or all statements, all name calling is abuse. All physical acts of anger directed at objects is abuse. It's like there's the famous legal case on pornography where it was decided that you can't define it, but you know it when you see it. I really don't know how to come down on that.
She said alcohol can just throw lighter fluid off a flame in a situation of domestic violence. All of these things constitute the domestic violence that Ms. Heard suffered at the hands of Mr. Depp. And he's trying to get you, to fool you, to believing that he's carried his burden of proof that never a single time in their relationship was he in any way, physically or non-physically, abusive to Ms. Heard. And that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, he was abusing the wood on the bed there. It's his wood to abuse. Like said, let him abuse his own wood as much as he wants.
You don't need to check that at the door when you go into the deliberation room. I'm going to walk you through the evidence, some of the evidence that's been presented, including evidence from Mr. Depp's own mouth. His own words are the words of his witnesses. Keep in mind the burden of proof. And as we go through this evidence, I'd ask you to keep this in mind as well. It's not about who's the better spouse. It's not about whether you think Ms. Heard may have been abusive to Mr. Depp. It's not. Because remember, if you think that they were both abusive to each other, and that's what their witness Laurel Anderson testified to, then Amber wins. They're trying to trick you into thinking that Amber has to be perfect in order to win.
No, she just has to be honest.
Ignoring Mr. Depp's many flaws, but don't fall for that trick. Amber's not perfect. None of us are. She's never said she's not perfect.
Pretended to be.
Yes, she has. That's not what you're being asked to decide. One time, ladies and gentlemen, one time. If he abused her one time, Amber wins.
That's the weakness in Johnny Depp's case. If they can prove, if they can prove their point that once she was abused, then that's where we are. But I think, to me, like I said, I've probably got about I say 70% chance that Johnny Depp will win this in court. The 30% comes from this deal that you have the 7 jurors. They have to all be unanimous in their decision, or it'll be a hung jury, and then we'll have to start over again, I guess. But if one incident, if they all agree that one incident, Johnny Depp crossed the line into abuse, and what the legal definition of abuse is, it is verbal abuse considered abuse under Virginia law. That's the weakness in their case, is right here. There's one incident. If one incident is agreed upon by all 7 jurors as being abuse, then it unravels.
Actually, if he fails to prove that he never abused her one time, Amber wins. So let's take a look at some of the evidence. This was one of the first messages shown to Mr. Depp in his cross-examination. This is a message to Paul Bettany, his drug buddy, early on in their relationship, when he says, "Let's burn Amber. Let's drown her before we burn her. I will fuck her burnt corpse afterwards to make sure she is dead."
These are sent to friends. There he goes. Water Bear was just saying the same thing. These texts are sent to his friends. How is this abusive to her? It's a shitty thing to say about your girlfriend or wife but how is that abusive to her? And also, you know, people say shitty things about people when they're in arguments. Like, you have arguments, you tell your friends, and you make that is so clearly a reference to the witch scene in Monty Python, except for the part about ravaging her corpse. Yeah, that was the whole deal. We found a witch. Can we burn her? How do you tell if she's a witch? And it goes through the whole deal. Like, do witches sink or float? They sink. Well, let's throw her into the pond. That was so totally Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I mean, to me, it was funny. I mean, you can say this, you have an argument with your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your husband, your wife, or friend, and you send a text message to someone. Oh God, I can't believe this, and you just vent. It was humorous venting to me, and it wasn't directed at her, so I'm not quite sure how that qualifies as abuse.
Some of the most vile, disgusting language that you could ever imagine.
Amber turned ways the same as a duck.
So let's look at how the relationship.
She turned me into a newt.
You remember Mr. Depp the other day in response to some text that we'll see later saying, I don't write like that.
Click.
This is a bookend of the relationship. This is after it was over. I asked Mr. Depp to read that top text. You'll remember that was the only thing I asked him to read. And he immediately said, I didn't write that text, even though, of course he did. Even though he wrote the text under it that said, hopefully that cunt's rotting corpse is decomposing in the fucking trunk of a Honda Civic. That's
I'm so sorry. See, that is funny to me. I mean, it's bad to say you hope someone is dead. It's bad to say that you hope their corpse is rotting somewhere. But just in a fit of anger, how frustrated must you be to send a text and say, I hope her fucking corpse is rotting in the back of a Honda Civic? I mean, where did the Honda Civic come into this? What did Honda Civics ever do to Johnny Depp? And bad form, yes. Bad taste, yes. Funny, yes. Abusive to her, no, because it wasn't directed. He didn't get right up in her face, say, I'm going to make sure your fucking corpse is rotting in the back of a Honda Civic. This was sending to his best friend of what it was 40 years or however long they've known each other.
That's how he bookended their relationship. Ladies and gentlemen, these words are a window into the heart and mind of America's favorite pirate.
I hate that. That's like one of the several times you referred to him as a pirate. It's just demeaning to him. And this is why I don't like their team. They're just unnecessarily demeaning, and move on. Blood pressure.
This is the real Johnny Depp.
A funny guy. He's kind of smiling there.
This is the real Johnny Depp after Miss Heard decided that she couldn't take it anymore, decided that she needed to leave him. And I'm not going to reread this whole text to you. But this is where he says she's begging for global humiliation. And she's going to get it. He says, I'll stop at nothing, and I can only hope that karma kicks in and takes the gift of breath from her. It's one of the only promises to Miss Heard.
Again, not directed at her. Again, he's not saying he's going to kill her. Again, he's not saying he's going to launch a global crusade to make sure she's crushed and killed. He said, God, I just hope she gets karma. I hope she gets karma. I hope she just stops breathing.
That Mr. Depp has ever kept. That's how he ended the relationship. But you saw how he started it. Now, Miss Heard did testify on the stand that Mr. Depp abused her countless times.
Countless was her words.
They were very happy. They started dating in 2011, and things were good. And she testified that even during periods of abuse, even during their relationship, when there was abuse occurring, that there were periods where they were very happy. It's the cycle of violence. It's the cycle of sobriety. There were periods when everything was good, when the monster was gone, and then the monster would return. You heard about how the first incidents of violence took place in 2012, when Miss Heard asked Johnny about his tattoo that used to say Winona Forever and had been changed to say Wino Forever. And she laughed. And she said, and he slapped me across the face. She thought it was a joke, and then he did it 2 more times. And then he said.
And then she said, how come we never clean the carpets? God, how do the carpets get so dirty? Man, there's a lot of dirt down here. That's her reaction after being slapped so hard 3 times it knocks her off her feet onto the carpet. Carpet. This is kind of dirty.
I thought I put the monster away, and I've done it before. That's what he said to her.
That's what she said he said to her.
Incidents of violence. But you don't just have to take what Mr. Depp said in his text. We can hear through his own voice what he called Miss Heard.
Because you're a fucking cunt!
No, I would say that's not that is a guy who's just reached the limit. I don't know where he was or what he was just like that's just him saying, shut up, get out of here, and leave me alone.
We talked about the monster. You heard Mr. Depp get on the stand and say that that was Miss Heard's term. That she made it up.
That's brutal.
That was what she used to refer to him when she was nagging him. She didn't want him to have a good time. She didn't want him to have a beer once in a while. That's what he's implying. But no, this was a term created by Mr. Depp that she heard for the first time in 2012 after he slapped her 3 times across the face and said, I thought I put the monster away. And after he sat up here on the stand under oath and told you that she made that term up, we look back at his texts, the writing at the time. The first text is after Australia in 2015, during a period of Depp, when he told Jerry Judge, his bodyguard, all I had to do was send the monster away and lock him up. Remember, he texted
Bella, Nebraska, laugh it up.
Email to Elton John in 2012, referring to himself as the monster. He tells Dr. Kipper, the doctor to whom he's paid millions and millions and millions of dollars, thank you, my darling Kipper. He says, I've locked my monster child away in a cage deep within.
My monster child, it doesn't really sound like he's saying I locked the abusive monster away. He's like, my snotty child. That's kind of what it's, I don't know.
He tells Stephen Duders, you know Mr. Duders. He likes to text.
Yeah, Duder, what's up?
He tells him, she thinks my Peruvian period, which is a reference to cocaine. He admitted to that. That means him using cocaine. Has made me a monster and that I am ruining the relationship. Imagine that. Someone actually thinking that maybe the impact of alcohol and cocaine is ruining a relationship.
Or $300 million a month in wine and ecstasy and mushrooms that your client may have been partaking of.
How dare she? He says, need to discuss the news helicopters. The monster, I want to shoot a motherfucker, but don't worry, the monster is not involved. Mr. Depp knows that he can turn into a monster. He knows that. He knows that. He got up here on the stand and tried to deny that to you. Talk about lack of accountability.
Yep, good. That's exactly the point I was going to make. He admitted to that. That destroys your entire statement. He never takes responsibility. So yeah, I was going to make that exact point. He's been saying he never takes responsibility, never admits anything. They put this out there. They've said from day one that he admits he's done some pretty stupid things. He just hasn't admitted to doing that.
Let's see the monster. Let's see the monster in the flesh.
That seems to be the case around most of the globe. Well, that's not abuse. Okay, so here we go. I hate this video just because of what she's doing with it. She set this up. She knows he's pissed off, angry about something, grumpy about something. She's setting it up, not even in his face. She's hiding the camera behind shit. She even tries to cover it with her mug at one point. He's angry. She sets up the camera to catch him being angry. And then she, in my view, she eggs him on. She antagonizes him and tries to make him do something. I think she is trying to make him hit her. He doesn't even know she's in the room. Something, whatever it is, has got him. He's pissed off as hell. You know, and we talk about they've had the testimony about her getting her toes caught under the door, and that's when she kicks the door open into his head and tries to punch him in the face. This is my reaction. Pretty much my exact words every time I stub my toe, scratch something. This is me yelling. This is a guy who is wrapped up in himself and is really pissed off and upset about something, and he's directing absolute zero of this at her.
What happened?
Shut up. He's walking away from her. He's like, I don't want to talk about it. Oh.
What happened?
Shut up. See, she's trying to get him to engage, and he won't. Look at him. She's just trying to. This video has bothered me from day one. She can walk away, but now she's standing there with the video camera, egging him on.
Nothing happened this morning. You know that?
Something clearly happened that morning. And she's saying, you know that? She's trying to get him to engage and trying to get an answer. And how's she doing it? By whatever has him rage-filled, by denying that it happened, by minimizing whatever has him enraged. Whatever you're pissed off at didn't happen, you know.
Were you in here?
Yeah, were you here?
No.
So then nothing happened to you this morning.
Yeah, you're right. I just woke up and you were so sweet and nice. We're not even fighting this morning. All I did was
She's making this all about her. We don't know what this exactly was. But yeah, I was asleep. We were so nice. We weren't even fighting this morning. Why are you so mad? What are you going to do? Leave him alone.
say sorry.
Did something happen to you this morning? I don't think so.
She's getting ready to cover the camera.
No, that's the thing.
First, she has to move it so he's in it. There, look at her trying to cover the camera. This is shitty. This is a shitty thing for her to do.
Are you crazy?
Have you drunk this whole thing this morning?
Oh, you got this.
There you go. Yes, have you drunk this whole thing this morning? What does it matter to you? You know, you see, this is on camera. She knows that her making this comment about him drinking a bottle of wine at now the clock says it's 2:30 in the background. Are they saying 2:30 afternoon is the morning and that's just they getting up late? Or I mean, at 2:30 last night, I was drinking a bottle of whiskey. So I don't know if this is 2:30 in the afternoon or 2:30 at night. If it's 2:30 in the afternoon, that's not a bad time to be having a nice bottle of wine. If it's 2:30 a.m., that's the normal time for having a bottle of wine. But she knew that making a comment about this bottle of wine would drive him nuts. And she does it right in front of the camera, trying to piss him off, but he just grabs the camera and chucks it. Now, this is the first time I've ever noticed this. Is this like a mason jar wine glass? This looks like one of those screw top mason jar wine glass things. If that's a wine glass, a mason jar wine glass, I freaking want one right now. That is awesome. A mason jar wine glass, that's my style. I need to have a little search on Amazon today for that.
You got this going? Oh, really? Really?
Did he hit her? Did he punch her? Did he do anything to her? No, he took the phone that she made for the setup and chucked it.
Smashing shit.
Smirk. Got him. Look at that little smirk at the
You see
end.
this, her laughing in that?
Yes,
She's not laughing in that.
she was smirking.
Mr. Depp in his courtroom right now is laughing and making snide remarks as that video is being played. But it's not a laughing matter. Who does that? Who does that? Imagine being an
Yeah, who does that, Amber Heard?
Videotaping him because when he's sober and sweet, you've never loved anything more. But when he mixes the drugs and he mixes drinks, he turns into this man. You've seen it before. You're praying it won't happen again, but deep down, you know it will. You know that that man will come out. You know that monster will come out, and you want him to change.
Again, Kat, as great. There's a helicopter out my window. That's nice. They're doing military exercises around here, so it's a bit noisy at times. But yeah, that's good. I lost it. Shoot. But yeah, anyway, it was his stuff. Break it. Leave me alone.
Imagine watching your husband, the person you love, behaving violently that way, like a wild animal. That is abuse. That's abuse. And you don't.
That is abuse. Oh, good Lord. I don't know if you can see it. Local government elections are taking place on Wednesday, so apparently they're setting up a campaign van outside my window. I'm just going to let this play. I'm going to bounce for a real quick second here and shut my windows. Ugh, sorry about that.
You have to look at that incident in isolation to find that it's abuse. You can look at it in the context of their whole relationship. This isn't about breaking down a series of individual days that you've heard evidence about. This is about the cumulative effect of Mr. Depp and Miss Heard's relationship and whether that constitutes abuse. That is abuse, ladies and gentlemen. That's domestic abuse. And their response is, she sold it to TMZ, which she didn't. There's no evidence of, and she was on a plane. The only evidence suggests she was on an international flight.
I'm
when
back.
Mr. Tremaine testified that they received it and it was validated within something like 15 minutes, which could only have happened by the person who sent it. Miss Heard was in the air. She didn't send it to TMZ. She never leaked anything to TMZ. As you heard.
Oh, shit.
Who would want that to become public? Again, in order to find for Mr. Depp, you would have
that whole TMZ thing. I don't even want to get into that again. There's undisputed and no question whatsoever that she leaked that to TMZ.
Amber was the abuser every single time. You have to believe the unbelievable. You all are smarter than that.
It's not that unbelievable. I
But
do
Mr.
believe.
Depp thought he could hide it. He thought he could hide the monster. That's why he lied in insurance forms that you have to fill out in order to be able to act. That's why he said he hadn't taken illegal substances, whether.
Oh, good Lord. I mean, I would imagine every single person in Hollywood checks that box. That's so because he's checking the box that because he's doing this, he's an abuser. Because he checked no to illegal substances, whether prescribed by a physician or not. If he was lying about this, does that make him an abuser? I think not.
Prescribed by a physician or not. That obviously wasn't true in the past 12 months. They keep talking about Mr. Depp's role as a father. This is what he sent, a text that he sent DX207. Now Lily Rose, his daughter, hates me because she thinks I'm drinking, and she's right, but I can't admit, or I fucking die in her eyes.
So what?
Thanks for that
That's
one, Vanessa.
And again, what is this? Him sleeping in a corner proves he's abusive.
Mr. Depp passed out in a Tokyo hotel room during the press tour for The Lone Ranger.
So what?
2013.
So
Ms. Heard
fucking
testified
what?
that Mr. Depp screamed at me, and all I could think were the kids are in an adjoining room. And Mr. Depp passed out with his head like this. I don't think he was sleeping on the floor because he had a bad back. They keep referring to these pictures as she took pictures of Mr. Depp while he was asleep. He's not asleep in that picture. He's passed out, drunk, and high, and she's taking pictures because she wants
Passed
him
out
to
kind of
realize
means
what
asleep,
he's
doesn't
done
it?
And get help and seek help.
It's like involuntary sleep, but it's sleep.
I don't think that looks like the spice cabinet of anyone in this courtroom.
Does it look like the spice cabinet of anybody in the chat? And just gonna say this. Just gonna point this one little thing out. Whose mug is this? Isn't that hers? Wasn't that the one she was trying to cover the camera up with?
That's Mr. Depp. This is Mr. Depp.
And this was beautiful on the cross examination when this picture was, when the question was, so you took a picture of him taking a nap on his own private island.
This is Mr. Depp. This is Mr. Depp.
What kind of, and these are things she sends to her friends.
When these pictures are shown,
she set him up to do this.
Defiance.
She set him up knowing he would nod off, so she gave him some ice cream to set this fucking picture up.
For taking this picture of him, for trying to help.
Now, not being a connoisseur of the devil's lettuce, I don't know for sure, but I have friends who are, and anyone that has ingested anywhere near those amounts or any significant amount, not one of them has gone on a rampage and started beating the hell out of people and smashing things. They just sort of tend to eat my Funyuns and play my video games and fall asleep.
So let's talk
Reefer
about
Madness. Awesome blast there.
Oh, forgot one. In March 2013, talked about the Wino Forever tattoo. In March 2013, there were a couple instances. There was one where on March 8th, and we'll get to that in a second, where he was drinking brown liquor and doing a lot of cocaine.
Woo, brown liquor.
Sorry, that was March 22nd. On March
I drink
8th,
lots of brown liquor, but I'm not an user.
Her. She felt like her lip went into her teeth and got a little blood on the wall. He grabbed her by the arm and held her on the floor, screaming at her.
Okay. He backhands him with all of those rings, smashes her lips into her teeth. There's bleeding so much that blood sprays on the wall. And here's a picture I took of him sleeping after. Turn the camera around. That's all I'm saying. Turn the camera around. That's the problem I have with this. It's not saying that if you didn't take pictures of the abuse, it didn't happen. I'm not saying that at all, and I would never argue that. What I'm saying is that if you get smashed in the face with a fistful of rings and it rips your gums or your lips open and sprays blood on the wall, the last fucking thing I'm taking a picture of him is of him sleeping after.
We'll come back to this in a minute.
Right back again.
This
1 second.
is March 22nd.
Oh,
This
God,
is what
this
Mr.
picture.
Depp said, isn't every hour happy hour? Again, totally abandoning any responsibility for behavior like this. But what happened on March 22nd is he wanted Ms. Heard to remove a painting by her ex-partner. And he wanted to admit to an affair that she wasn't having. She didn't admit to it because it wasn't true. So he decided to have some lines of cocaine and some whiskey for breakfast. And then, on the way to filming the Keith Richards documentary, after a multi-hour argument, he grabbed their dog, their teacup Yorkie, and holds the dog, Boo, out of the window of a moving car. And he's howling like an animal, Ms. Heard said, while holding the dog out of the car. That is abuse, ladies and gentlemen. That's abuse.
Let's talk about this. Sorry, I had to pop out to hook up the fan here because closing the windows because of the election vans raised the temperature 1,000,000 degrees. So I had to get the fan here on me. But this picture was something I hadn't noticed until Legal Mindset pointed out. I mean, I thought this was just kind of like a normal breakfast around the Depp family home. But talking with Legal Mindset, he's convinced me that this is an absolute setup. Johnny Depp's nowhere in the house. She's doing this perfect setup. This is the first time I saw this picture, I thought this was a picture that Johnny Depp had taken because they testified that she'd mentioned that this was her drink back here, some sort of kombucha or something like that. This was his brown liquor. And so I thought this was Johnny Depp just taking this for whatever reason, but she took the picture. We found out later. And we've got the 4 perfect lines of coke. Oh, hang on. We've got a new guest here in our chat. Welcome to Valiant Renegade. Look at the smiling face there.
Oh, yeah. Hang on. Let me switch up the screens real quick. Mrs. Renegade and I just got home from seeing Top Gun. Her first time, my second.
It doesn't
So,
release here in Korea until June 22nd for some
I was
reason.
going
So
to
I've got to
ask
wait a
you.
month.
Oh, damn. That sucks. It is so good. It's ridiculous. It is such a
Awesome.
breath of fresh air when it comes to Hollywood movies nowadays.
Oh, great. Welcome to the channel here. We're just kind of going through the closing arguments.
Yeah,
we were
actually, I
gonna-
was a little late getting home
Yeah.
because I had to go refresh my cocaine and tampon applicator
Yeah.
combination. So,
yeah, we were going to do the whole Amber side closing arguments, but then I realized I wanted to wrap this thing up in 2 hours, but they went an hour and 54 minutes or whatever it was. So we're going to break it. Tomorrow we'll do the Crazy Cat Ladies closing. So we're just kind of working through Rottenborn's deal here right now. But yeah, so we've got we're to this part where we're just sort of talking about this picture, and this is shortly after. Now, how surprising is it that an actor is filling out his insurance forms or whatever for a project, and he checks the box that I'm not using illegal substances? What percentage of actors that use illegal substances would you say check no on that box?
I think it's probably the same percentage as the general population when I'm filling out any type of insurance forms with clients that ask the same question. So
I'm
all
smoking
of
my
them say no.
cigars, ticking off the I've never smoked tobacco products, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was just saying, like, Legal Mindset, he was the one that changed my mind about this picture. I thought the first time I saw this picture, I thought Johnny Depp had taken this picture because she said this was her beverage in the background and this in the foreground was Johnny's drink. So I thought this was taken from Johnny's perspective, Johnny taking it. But then he said, he wasn't anywhere in the house when this was taken. And this is a total complete setup.
Yeah.
I thought he was taking the pictures of the lines before he did them, but this is if he's not in the house, no good cocaine addict would just leave 4 lines of coke.
Not to mention, it's just a little too perfect. So he uses his driver's license to make the lines, and then he conveniently leaves this Jack Sparrow property of JD next to it and takes a picture. I mean, come on.
And I'm going to go out on a limb and say, like, I've never touched the stuff, so I don't know, but I have friends and ex-girlfriends who have. But I don't know of a man on earth that has or probably would use a tampon applicator as a inhalation device. And I'm sure Johnny Depp, if he's got these wicked cool little drug boxes and things, he's probably got something in his overnight rig bag over here that would. He's probably got like a diamond encrusted, gold plated,
right,
platinum coke sniffer,
rolled up $1,000 bill.
Yeah, and so I mean, this is her setting him up.
That was my impression.
Well, yeah, and we've just gone through all of the him falling asleep videos. And I just made the point that if some guy backhands you with a face full of rings, with a handful of rings in the face, it splits your lip, blood flies across the wall. The last fucking thing I'm doing is taking a picture of him after he goes to sleep. And this is all part of the arguments I was making at the beginning that Johnny Depp is saying that if you don't take pictures, it didn't happen. No, it's if you take pictures of everything else that happened except the abuse, maybe it didn't happen.
That was my thing. This whole trial, looking at this again as a legal lay person. I mean, I'm not a professional attorney. I'm not an attorney, just for everybody out there. I'm a financial guru. So, I mean, from the same perspective, my life has always been math and analytics, right? So I look at things from a very logical, mathematical perspective, and I have trouble reconciling the fact that Amber has produced all of these pictures, all of these audio and video recordings, all of this stuff. And none of them, not a single one, ever seems to capture a moment where Johnny actually physically abuses her. One time.
We just did the whole smashing cabinet thing where she purposely hid the camera, purposely walked in on a guy having a moment, and purposely tried to egg him on into doing something. And the only thing you get out of it is him picking up the camera and chucking it somewhere when he could have just hauled off and smashed her in the face, which is what she wanted to have happen.
And if I'm not mistaken, I believe it was on the day or right after the day that he learned that he had been,
Yeah.
according to him, swindled out of
Yeah.
potentially hundreds of millions of dollars, which my understanding as well is that that financial management firm settled with him for allegedly, because it was sealed, my understanding,
Mhm.
somewhere around $10 million.
Yeah. And it was alleged they took like 650, I believe. 650 million was the
I
number
don't
I
know if they
heard.
wiped out his entire. I mean, I think that's what his reported net worth
Oh, okay.
was. I don't know if
All right.
I don't think they wiped it all out. Now, look again. To be fair,
Yeah.
Johnny's not a saint either. That doesn't make him an abuser, a physical. I mean, it doesn't make him a wife beater. And at the same time, I think Johnny had a reputation of going through money like water. I don't know if there was any one party in that situation
Mhm.
where one was totally alleviated of fault or one was completely at fault, but there was a settlement. It was sealed. The management company did not want it released. They supposedly settled for 8+ figures. So do the math. What does that tell you?
Yeah.
If I was accused of something like that and I knew I hadn't done anything wrong, I would fight it out because that's my professional reputation. That's my career. I've spent 20
Yeah.
years in my case building. I don't want my reputation damaged like that. I would fight. Again, wasn't there, can't speak to it authoritatively with perfect knowledge, but again, the whole thing was, that's neither here nor there at this point, but none of that makes him a wife beater, none of it. And there's
Exactly.
been no evidence at this point to show that. I can't get past everything that Amber brought up, and nothing really showed. I mean, the picture she showed of, oh, look at the little spot under my eye. It was like, is that a pimple? It looked like a pimple. She had a little red dot right here, like it looked like a pimple, and she's claiming that was part of a bruise. And then she looks in the courtroom with the makeup on, exactly the same as she looks in most of the pictures that she's taken.
Here comes it's the umbrella guy. That umbrella guy comments again.
Yeah.
He gets these every time he's on any channel.
Mm-hmm.
But you're exactly right.
God.
And I had an ex-girlfriend that she worked in a cosmetic surgery clinic, and I mean, we still hang out. And I was just the other day, I showed her the pictures of the bruising, like the part around the eye and the temple. She just looked at him and said, "Those are Botox injection sites."
That doesn't surprise me.
That's just,
I don't know what they look like, but that seems plausible to me, considering who it is.
Yeah, well, I don't either. But I mean, she just said it just so matter of factly. Like, I said, what are these? Oh, those are Botox injection sites. That's exactly where we put the Botox in. Oh, okay. But still, you have the little dot thing there. Which would be better? Pictures of her being drugged through glass, pictures of her describing that she was slipping on the broken shards of glass trying to get away from him, and none of those. But
where's the cuts? Where's
Yeah.
the injury from slipping on shards of broken glass? I mean, I don't know about you, but I've watched Bruce Willis in Die Hard, I don't know how many dozens of times in my life. That man walked on broken glass in that movie, and he left a trail of blood, and his feet were destroyed. I mean, his character, of course, John McClane.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about somebody slipping around and walking on broken glass. Okay, where was the pictures of the damage from that?
Yeah. Well, let's get on with some more of Rottenborn's statements here, and just jump in anytime. As soon as I get the right screen up, there we go.
Let's go back to this, because Ms. Vasquez read a parade of witnesses that she believes support Johnny's defense in this case. But as you've seen over the course of this proceeding, these witnesses, as I previewed in the opening, almost all of them are witnesses on his payroll. They're all scared to say anything bad about him, and they've seen what happens to people who do. And none were there.
What happens to
for the
people that
instances
do?
of domestic violence. What they're saying is, oh, if he didn't abuse Miss Heard in front of his 4 bodyguards, then it must have never happened.
But she
That's
claims he
essentially what they're asking
did.
you to believe.
She claims
That's
repeatedly that he
ridiculous.
did this
That's
in
not
front
the
of
way
his
domestic
bodyguards,
violence works.
in front of his
Take his
security.
sister, Christy. I know it seems like a year ago, but she was the first witness in this case. You remember her on the stand when I presented her with these texts that say, stop drinking, stop coke, and stop pills. You'll remember her squirming and saying, I don't think I was asking him to stop drinking, stop coke, stop pills. She couldn't even answer that basic question because she wanted to lie for Mr. Depp and say that Miss Heard was delusional. She couldn't even admit this to you. She's nothing but an enabler. The same with Sean Beck, his head of security, who's been sitting in this courtroom for the past 6 weeks. He's right there. Mr. Beck was the one who testified to you that when Mr. Depp has a few drinks of alcohol, he said, I wrote this down, he said it's like the rest of us drinking sparkling water.
So what? I tend to consume a little more of the brown beverage than a great deal of people, but I'm not abusive. I mean, so what? He drinks and does drugs. He's been saying this from day one. That doesn't mean that he did any of this.
No.
And the fact if he drinks more than the average person and doesn't act like the average person, that sort of means he's in a better position than a normal person would be, drinking and doing whatever drugs he's doing.
Well, I think that's what they see. It seems that they spent far more of their time trying to convince people that because he did drugs and alcohol, that made him an abuser, versus actually providing physical evidence of some nature that showed him being an abuser. Like they knew going in, they did not have the evidence to show this, to prove it definitively. So they had to use this drug and alcohol abuse stuff to try to convince the jury that, well, he just doesn't remember it.
Well, that's
But
they
apparently
have
Amber
enough
doesn't
physical
either.
evidence. Yeah.
That's exactly. And that's what I think is so weak.
Yeah, and again, it's not at all saying that if you never take pictures, it never happened.
Right.
It's just saying that when you have a little chip of wood taken out of the bed and a blood-soaked pillow at the top of the bed, I know which one I'm taking pictures of if I'm an abuse victim.
Well, that's just it. I think the fact, and this is going to sound crazy, but I think, like I said, I think the fact that Amber had so much so many photos, so many videos, so many audio recordings that she presented to the jury, that none of which showed or you heard Johnny hitting her, abusing her, anything. How do you square those two things up? I guess my point is you either have no evidence or you have evidence that shows that this happened, not a bunch of evidence that shows everything either immediately before or after, but nothing of the actual events. If as many times as she said that this happened, how the hell do you not have one damn anything? I don't know.
And that's I think the issue that everybody has with this whole thing. I mean,
If I'm the jury, that's what I'm thinking. I really have to scratch my head on this and wonder, okay, a lot of pictures here, but where's the pictures of what you're saying? It's just bizarre.
Where's the picture of anything you're saying? It
posted you a fun little Twitter link I put up earlier, just for Johnny. So nothing you have to do now. I just figured I'd send it to you. I didn't know if you saw it earlier.
All right.
I don't think that kitchen video that we just saw was like you or I when we drink sparkling water. This is the same Sean Beck who said that on the evening of May 21st, 2016, which Elaine will talk about in a little bit, he said Mr. Depp may have bumped something off a table. You've seen the pictures. You'll see them again. Just like Travis McGivern said that Mr. Depp rearranged Miss Heard's closet. You've seen the pictures. You'll see him again.
There's someone coming to rearrange
Just
my
like Tara Roberts
closet.
of Bahamas, who tried to blame everything on Miss Heard and only under cross-examination admitted that Mr. Depp passed out face down in the sand underneath a hammock and his son Jack found him there. She took a video of their cabin in the Bahamas to try to suggest to you that this assault that Miss Heard alleges couldn't have taken place. But conveniently, she didn't take the camera into the closet where Mr. Depp held Miss Heard, hit her. We'll get to that incident. She didn't take the video camera into the bathroom where he sexually assaulted Miss Heard. She didn't do that because she wanted to generate evidence only favorable to Mr. Depp. Think about Sean Beck and Starling Jenkins' conflicting stories about the birthday party on April 21st. Remember, Mr. Depp experienced horrific financial news the evening of that night, April 21st, 2016. He learned that he was essentially out of money and he needed to start selling things. Well, we all know what Mr. Depp does when he receives bad news like that. He left the meeting at 9:30 and didn't arrive at Miss Heard's birthday party until 11:15. Okay, fine, he was late. But we all know what he does when he has that hour and 45 minutes of free time and he's stressed out about something. Mr. Beck testified.
What do we know he does?
Remember, he said,
What are you
"I took
implying,
him
Mr.
to his
Rottenborn?"
home on Sweetser Avenue, his other home, to pick up a birthday present for Miss Heard." That's what he said. That's what he said. Mr. Jenkins, you may remember him. He testified by the video link on the stand. And I said, "You don't know what he did in that intervening time period." And he said, "Oh, yes, I do. I do." He said, "Mr. Depp was visiting his sick mother." And I said, "Who told you that?" And he said, "Mr. Beck." The witnesses.
How
Mr.
is
Depp
this
has
abusive?
paraded up here, who are here in person. They're here in person because they're on his payroll, almost all of them. And they're telling you whatever they think they need to tell you to get you to take Mr. Depp's side, just as we previewed they would do in the opening.
Where was
But
her
Mr. Depp would go
witnesses?
through periods where he would apologize, where he would be grateful. I have no doubt that there were times when Mr. Depp wanted to get better. These are texts, PX 120A and 120B. I won't read them all to you. These are texts that Mr. Depp sent to Paige Heard, Amber's mom, after detox on the island in 2014. He says, "There were more than a few times when I thought it would be more simple to take that route." Meaning go for a swim and swallow a big drink of ocean. And he said, "It was Amber and Amber alone that got me through this." There's no luckier man on this earth to have the strength that Amber gives me and the full support of each of you. So as you're weighing the evidence and you're weighing Mr. Depp's credibility, think to yourself, what do I believe? What he has a motive to say on the stand, or what he wrote contemporaneously with the events? Take his own words to Amber after the detox. "Just to let you know that I'm fine, my angel. I miss you, of course, but this was the right thing to do to speed up the process. I love you more than life."
That sounds so abusive, doesn't it?
But
I was
then there
about
were
to
these
say,
things,
where's
and there were
the
times
hitting
like
her in
this.
all this?
This is sent on March 9th. We had a slightly grim morning, is the way Mr. Depp describes it. You'll remember the text from a few days later, referred to as the disco bloodbath text,
This was so
where
stupid.
Miss Heard says, "Is that about last Friday night by any chance?" And Mr. Depp responds, "How can you make me smile about such a hideous moment?" He testified on the stand, "I don't remember what happened that Friday night, but Miss Heard sure did." And this is one of the things that she had to show for it. Now, Ms. Vasquez showed this to you in opening statements and
Yeah.
made it seem like, again, remember what I said at the beginning, if you take pictures, they're fake. If you didn't take pictures, it didn't happen. Here's one where she did take a picture, but Ms. Vasquez says, but she doesn't have injuries on her face. Look at the date that this picture was taken, ladies and gentlemen. March 23rd, 2013, 15 days after this incident.
So why wasn't this picture taken 15 days before?
Why would she still have a bruise 15 days later?
And that's not even a grab bruise. Yeah. I've had bruises from being grabbed hard, and you have the finger bruises. You have the fingerprints. That's not the right shape for a punch bruise. I don't know what this bruise is, but to me, it doesn't look like either a grab or a punch.
Yeah, I don't know.
What do I know?
Was it, when she brought up, I'd put on my foundation and then I'd grab a bruise kit. I mean, not a bruise kit. And then was she testing it on her arm that day? Who knows?
Well, that would be an interesting question. Is the other bruising incidents, how long after or before this picture were they taken?
I mean, 15 days is usually you take an injury like this, and I've had my fair share of bruises because I've done martial arts for a while. I mean, I've been out of it the last few years, but I mean, we've sparred, and I'd get bruises. I mean, you get popped pretty good sometimes, especially when you're not using gloves, and you still controlled punches. But even those would take, a day or two to really come in to see them. But by 15 days later, there was virtually nothing left. I mean, nothing that would look that visible. I mean, that looks like a picture that would have been taken maybe 2 days after an incident. That's when the bruising usually, I think, reaches peak. 2, 3, 4 days maybe, but 15 days later, that doesn't jive with what I've personally experienced on a number of occasions.
No, and I think from a strategic point, it's a bad thing for Rottenborn to do, to put up when you're making the argument that he was violent and abusive, so therefore her claims were true, to put up pictures of him sleeping, pictures of him passed out on a floor, in old pictures. Like, I think you're just drawing attention to how weak your case really is.
I just can't get over the fact that everything she recorded, she didn't get a single recording of anything actually happening in the moment. That bothers me too.
Yeah.
I mean, she was so diligent with taking all these pictures and nothing ever came up.
Well, and you
Especially the night he wrecks the bar, right? That would have happened. Somebody's that angry that's going to hit you the night he's tearing through a bar after he just found out that he got swindled out of hundreds of millions of dollars potentially. And he's breaking everything and this and that. He's pissed off, and you didn't get hit that night, and you didn't record anything that night. Again, when you in and of itself, okay, that could have happened. But when you start putting it together with everything else that she said and claimed, shit just don't make sense.
Yeah, well, the argument could be made, I guess, that she's a victim and she's afraid of what will happen if he sees the pictures on her phone. But so therefore she's just taking pictures of him after, or the after effects, rather than take the pictures of the injuries to her. But if you give her that, it loses its credibility by the statement she made when they said, "Well, aren't you afraid?" She said, "Well, why should I be afraid of him?" So she said during the redirect, she wasn't afraid to post things. She wasn't afraid of him. So that kind of takes away any argument you would have where she said, "I didn't take the pictures because I was afraid he would see them."
Yeah, which one is it? It's either one or the other. It can't be both.
And I mean, we got into the whole thing yesterday doing the Team Depp closing arguments with the, "I'm deathly afraid of him. He keeps saying that, we're together until death. I'm never going to leave you." She's in fear for her life because she's getting these ass kickings. So she buys him a great big fucking knife with "until dead" scrawled on the blade. Doesn't sort of seem like something you would do if you were a victim of a horrible abuser who was saying that you're going to be together until you die.
Yeah, I'd be afraid that the other person would eventually use that knife on me if that was the case.
Yeah, well, let's see some more awesome witness evidence
They're
here.
trying to deceive you into thinking, "Oh, there should have been more." This is a 2-week-old bruise. And she texted, look who she texted that to. She texted to her mom. They say she never told anyone.
Where was her
Text the
mom?
March
Has her mom
23rd,
passed away?
2015.
Where was her mom not testifying in
Let's
this?
go to Hicksville. You remember
I think
Hicksville? Obviously,
she's no
there's been
longer
a little
with
bit of
us.
discussion about
Okay.
that in this case.
I
This
think.
is where Mr. Depp got jealous that a woman named Kelly Sue was sitting close to Miss Heard and maybe had an arm around her at
Kelly
a campfire. And everyone was having a good time. There were some mushrooms involved. There was
mushrooms involved, but Amber Heard does not do drugs.
drinking. And Mr. Depp got jealous of that. Now, he claims that Miss Heard is the abuser, that she's so much stronger than he is. But then he testified that
Did he ever say she was stronger than him? You do not have to be stronger than someone to be an abuser.
Mm-mm.
That's bullshit.
the
That
evidence
pisses
shows
me
that in
off.
Hicksville, he was the one who said he was just trying to protect Amber. Well, who says, why would she need protection if she's the abuser? And he went and he took Kelly Sue's hand, forcibly removed it from Miss Heard, embarrassing Miss Heard, ruining the mood of the whole night. So they went and they got into an argument in the trailer in which not only did he trash the trailer, but he took her into the bathroom. He slammed her up against the side wall of the bedroom by her neck, holds her there. That was the next one. In Hicksville, he took her into the bathroom of the trailer and did what he called a cavity search, where he inserted his fingers inside of her and sexually assaulted her, then trashed the trailer. And you
Trashed
heard
the trailer.
this Morgan Knight
$62.
days ago, who said it was $62 of damage. You also heard evidence that the way he got involved in this trial was by reaching out to one of the main Johnny Depp fan influencers on social media. And you saw that.
Valiant Renegade.
That's how he injected himself into this trial.
I
There's way
did.
more than $62 of damage. You heard testimony from Rocky Pennington.
Don't
Whitney
you
heard
wish you were that umbrella
Whitney
guy?
Enriquez and Amber about him trashing the trailer.
I
And
wish
it's
I
not really
was.
a surprise. The man's admitted that he smashes things when he gets angry. The man's admitted that he smashed hotel rooms. You saw the quote that he admitted to the other day, that when he wants to hit something, he's going to hit it, and he doesn't care about the repercussions.
When he wants to hit something, not someone. I mean, it's so telling that he destroys things around him,
Mhm.
but there's no evidence that he did anything to the person.
No.
It's just, there's so nothing, and we talked a little bit about it, and maybe we'll have a little bit of extra time here. I feel bad, I honestly feel bad for her lawyers. They've got a shit client. I mean, sure, they're going to get their 15 minutes of fame out of it, but probably not the same 15 minutes they were hoping to get out of it. But they've got a shit case, a shitty client, and they're doing their best. And this is the best arguments they can make are innuendos, suggestions, and unsubstantiated points. I feel bad for them that this is what they have to deal with, and this is how they have to present their case, because this is the best possible way they can do it.
Well, you heard the story from James from court about Elaine, right?
Yeah, and that kind of made me pause for a little bit. I mean, what do you think about that? There was reported that she came out of the bathroom crying, or she was in the bathroom crying.
She ran into the bathroom crying.
Yeah, what's your
And then
thoughts
she
on that?
came out. Now he said he personally, I thought he said he personally witnessed it, or at
Yeah.
least he was definitely there. Let's put it that way.
He said he witnessed, and they tried to make her feel a little better.
They tried to make her feel a little bit better, and he said that I think he said something to the effect of, "Hey, look, Elaine, we know this is really hard on you, and it's it's going to be okay," or something like that. And she kind of nodded and I think said thank you or something to that effect. I don't remember the whole story. I think he put up a video on his channel about it, or he talked with maybe Popcorn Planet today about that, and Andy Signor. But I can believe it. I mean, look at how, and just for everybody watching, if you don't know, this took place the day of the closing arguments. It was around, I believe, maybe 4 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern time. It was about an hour before the jury left to go home for the weekend. She obviously had a very bad performance. Let's not beat around the bush.
Yeah.
That morning on her portion of the close, and I think she probably knew she screwed up. Supposedly, Amber had given her several admonishments during this trial, talked about firing them all, getting new attorneys. Elaine supposedly told her, well, you can go ahead and represent yourself if you really want to.
Had that argument.
Yep. And which I can believe. I mean, we've seen Amber passing little sticky notes and stuff back to her lawyers the whole time the trial's going on. Like, she's telling them what to do, not letting them do their job. How many times has she opened her mouth on the stand and sunk her legal team with it?
Yep.
By saying stupid shit like Kate Moss, number one. And then there was a few other things that she mentioned. There's several of them I can't even remember, but I know her legal team were probably rolling their eyes and throwing their heads down on the tables, like, you just opened this door and this door and this door. And of course, when she got up on her, when she was brought up as a rebuttal at the end, and I mean, she basically just went on a tangent about everything, opening the door back up for Camille to get up there and just roast her ass again. And I'm sure her legal team didn't. Basically, she's thrown her legal team under the bus so many times. She doesn't listen to them. She doesn't do, I'm sure, what the advice they're giving her. It just doesn't seem like it to me. And I think Elaine, it just finally all came to a head, because I think Elaine is probably seeing what is being said about her on social media. I mean, she's still just trying to do her job at the end of the day. And Amber has not made it easy on her, for sure. And I mean, I joke about Elaine with everybody else, but I think it finally got to her. And I think she knew that not only maybe there's a good chance they're going to lose this case, but I think Elaine probably also feels like that, this is probably an incredibly damaging career moment for her. And I think it's maybe starting to sink in.
Yeah. What do you think about the we shouldn't be making fun of everything? It kind of made me pause, and I think, like, you can make fun of the thing she says and does because that's her professional thing. But I've been calling her Lady Elaine Fairchild since the beginning of the. She just looks like she's straight out of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood to me.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
kind
I
of made me
agree.
think. Yeah, she's probably just she's been beaten down so far. It's kind of like kicking a dead horse at this point,
No, I know, and I think she knew how bad her portion of the close was because everybody noticed it was like this didn't make any sense. It was kind of rambling, and then she gets to the end about where we don't really want 100 million. It's like
Yeah.
what the hell? And look, I'll tell you, probably when they walked out of there, one person that probably got her in a room and chewed her out was the guy on the screen right there, Rottenborn, because when
Yeah.
she got up there and basically shanked his whole argument to the jury. And then he tried to go up there in the last 6 minutes that he had to try to clean it up. And he just probably knew at that point, what did she just do?
Can't argue with that. I know a lot of people are saying, well, she chose to represent him, so she gets whatever backlash comes at her. But I don't necessarily mean to be like abusive towards her, but I'm still going to keep poking fun because that's what I do.
No, I get it. No, look, she deserves the poking fun at. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I understand why she's feeling bad right now.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And it's kind of sad that they've been put in this position.
In Hicksville, the Hicksville was late May 2013. This is another text from drug buddy Bettany, where he says, I, of course, pounded and displayed ugly colors to Amber on recent journey. I am an insane person and not so fair-headed after too much of the drink.
The Amber Alert.
Weed, pills, fine.
We've got the Amber Alert going off during this was so, you could not have scripted this better.
Booze, my capacity is too large and I won't stop. Ugly and sad. Oh, how I love it.
There appears to be an Amber Alert, but I think we're okay. People are
The
getting at us on
judge
their phones.
said
They
it.
haven't silenced that.
Yeah. So beautiful.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
An Amber Alert.
How did Depp's team not just
That's-
crack up
that's
at
after
that?
This is what I was getting to next. Remember the testimony about Mr. Depp being drunk on his yacht
In case
On
you
the
didn't hear
island
it the first
in the
time.
Bahamas in 2013, when Mr. Depp looked a little scary by the way his body fell into the water.
The only one
Lily
not at the
Rose, his
table
daughter, started
is
to cry.
Rottenborn, so you know it's his phone.
Mr. Comforted
Yeah.
Because
Lily
he's not
Rose.
there to stop
and then Depp accused Amber of making them aware of this, that he was drinking again, making his kids aware of this. And he slammed her up against the side wall of the bedroom, held her up by her neck, held her there for a second, and said, I can fucking kill you, and you're an embarrassment. That's what he said. And then, do you remember what happened? Lily Rose and Amber helicoptered away from the island. And while Amber was in the helicopter with Lily Rose, Mr. Depp sends her this piece of poetry, calling her a lesbian camp counselor because she cared about his drinking.
She called
And
herself a lesbian
ridiculed
camp counselor too.
for trying to protect his daughter.
This is better than a lesbian bookstore owner.
Yeah.
This text, let's fast forward a little bit to, actually, before we talk about this is the Boston flight. Let's talk about the Moscow flight. The Moscow flight, when Mr. Depp and Amber, she said that was the one time she took ecstasy or MDMA.
The one time. I don't believe that for a
When he
second.
hit her on the plane, when he threatened to break the flight attendant's wrist, and Miss Vasquez, again, just tried to tell you, oh, he always wore rings. Now, Miss Heard said almost all the time he did, maybe sometimes when he didn't. And in the picture that she just showed you, PX 1248, you can take a look at that when you review the evidence. That's a picture taken in Moscow with no rings other than a wedding ring on his finger or some kind of ring. He's wearing one ring on his finger.
Not to digress, but speaking of the, we don't do the homo. There we go. There we go. You don't want that homogenized screen there. You need a little bit of black space.
Oh, yeah.
But speaking of that, have you seen this particular? I'm gonna have to stop sharing that screen. And have you seen this particular? I have to bring it up here. This was I saw this on Twitter this morning. I thought it was really, really funny. Bring it up here.
Yes.
You saw
Yes.
that one? The poor guy behind her.
I tell you, all the post-it notes, Amber's filling those things out. Here.
Yeah.
Y'all are doing it wrong.
I just thought that was funny.
Yeah.
Just the poor guy back there getting littered. Of course.
Priceless.
And the other thing, you know, there was no writing on that, sort of like the invisible notes she was taking there for a while too.
I couldn't believe that. I kept wondering what the hell she was writing.
Now we know.
Jack shit.
Now we know there's. But I mean, that's just. And I wish the jury could see some of this, because that's just bullshit. I mean, that's just stupid. Well, back to Mr. Rottenborn.
And so in Mr. Depp's world, they're going to try to come at you either way. They say, well, he was wearing rings, but it didn't leave a mark on your face. And then they show you a picture where he wasn't wearing rings during that trip. So that's what happened in Moscow. On September
What happened in Moscow?
In London, Mr. Depp was filming with Paul Bettany. He missed a few days of work, going on a multi-day drug binge. And that's when he told Miss Heard that if she accepted an invitation and went to a concert with a friend that she was starring in a movie with, that the engagement would be off. Talk about coercive control that Dawn Hughes testified is abuse. That is abuse. And there's been a lot mentioned in this case by Mr. Depp about Miss Heard not wanting him to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Miss Heard not wanting him to leave. Well, this is why she didn't want him to leave, because he goes off with his friends and he twists off, as he calls it, and goes on a multi-day bender.
What fucking sense does that make? There's that audio of her begging him, please don't leave me, Johnny. Come back to me. Just hug me, Johnny. Just be with me. Please don't leave me, Johnny. I don't want you to. That wasn't, I don't want you to go out and get coked off your head. That was a please come back to me and make sweet love to me because I love you, Johnny. Please don't break it up with. That's what that was.
Yeah, and don't forget, folks, he was on a bender, like he was a bender out of his mind. But apparently he was still cognizant enough to remove all of his rings before punching Amber in a rage.
Yeah. That's what happened in Moscow.
That's why she didn't want him to leave when he got spun up like that and she could see the monster coming. So let's fast forward to the Boston plaintiffs.
You can see the monster coming, so you don't want him to leave. So you say, come on and stay home with the monster. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Mr. Depp was jealous that she was filming a movie with James Franco. And Miss Heard testified
Johnny Depp wanted to make a film with
him
James. Why do they hate
Boston,
each other? Do you know
she was
why
on the
they
plane,
hate each other?
His car pulled up. She could guess by the way
Don't know
he was
anything about it.
moving. She
I mean,
knew
apart from
what
him,
was gonna
you know,
board that
screwing
plane.
his
It
wife.
wasn't Mr. Depp,
I thought that was.
man.
I thought they
Mr.
hated each
Depp
other
the monster.
before, but
She
whatever.
said, I already know he's drunk. I already know he's using. And then when he got on the plane, he straight up started taunting her. He called her a go-getter and a slut. He started throwing things at her, ice cubes and utensils, and he slapped her face against the window when she was seated. And when she got up to move, how dare she, he kicked her in the back. She said, I feel this boot in my back. And he continued to drink and eventually started howling.
And this is the Scottish guy was there on the plane at the same time. The security guy. Do you think? I mean, I just can't imagine a guy going, "Well, it's not my client getting kicked and
That's what I'm
punched and
saying.
slapped. I'm just going to sit here and watch this guy beat the shit out of this woman."
Where are the witnesses to this? Where?
Well, he was on the stand. You know, they had him on the stand. Well, we had him by deposition, but you know, was he deposition or just a live video? I can't remember.
I don't remember.
But anyway, they questioned him, and this didn't come out. I mean, this is just ridiculous.
You've got to have at least one person to corroborate this, and the best she had was Whitney, and even Whitney did a terrible job of that.
Yeah. Well, you know, there's nobody at the Hicksville Trailer Palace. I just love the name of that place. The Hicksville Trailer Palace. He said there was when he was threatening to ask her how many pounds of pressure it took to break some strange woman's arm. Where's that strange woman? They said there were so many people around. Where were the so many people that were around? Where's the flight attendant that this happened to?
Like an animal passed out in the bathroom.
But there were no animals there, right?
Let's play 221, please.
The only purpose for this video is just to humiliate him.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with his case or her case.
Nope.
That's Mr. Depp on the plane, but he expects you to believe him that he didn't have anything to drink on that plane except for maybe.
No, I think he expects you to believe he didn't pound the hell out of her and kick her in the back and stomp her.
He's talked about
Yeah.
blackouts. These blackouts where he doesn't remember what
I mean,
happened.
in my inexpert
You blame
opinion,
them on
that
the
doesn't
individual,
sound
but
like
we know
someone
they
who's
happened
very
throughout.
capable
He
of
doesn't
doing
remember what's
anything.
happened. As you're weighing
Exactly.
the evidence, as you're assessing.
That sounds like a guy just like turtling it on the parking lot,
Think to
going,
yourself,
ah.
do you believe Amber's account of what happened on the plane, or do you believe that person's account that you just heard? But actually, you can look at his account from a few days later,
Let's look at it.
May 30th, in which he told, again, Paul Bettany, he said, drank all night before I picked Amber up to fly to LA. No food for days, powders, half a bottle of whiskey, 1,000 Red Bulls and vodkas, pills, 2 bottles of champagne. And what do you get? An angry aggro engine in a fucking blackout, screaming obscenities and insulting any fuck who got near. I'm done. I'm admittedly too fucked in the head to spray my rage at the one I love. For little reason as well. I'm too old to be that guy, but pills are fine.
Okay, 2 comments. 1, that sounds like a great new line to put in a new Blues Brothers movie. You say, we've got cop car, we got a cop tires, we got cop brakes.
Yep.
It's like I just like no food for
It's-
days,
it's
powders,
100
half.
I know.
half a
I
bo-
know the line. Yeah, it's 106 miles to
Yeah.
Chicago. We're wearing sunglasses. We got a half a pack of cigarettes. It's night. Hit it.
Mhm. That's like this would be great for the next one. No food for days, powders, half a bottle of whiskey, 1,000 Red Bulls and vodka pills, 2 bottles of champagne on a plane, and what do you get? And again, here I'm done. What's he done doing? He's done being angry. He's done blacking out. He's done screaming obscenities. He's done insulting. It doesn't
Insulting
mention
people.
Yeah, it doesn't mention that he's done pounding the hell out of people.
You'd think still if you were in a drunken rage, you might accidentally admit that at least once out of all these times.
Yeah.
And he expects you to believe that he's carried his burden of proof in showing that no abuse happened on that plane. You don't have to look at just that. You can
Well,
look
you
at
don't
this
have
text
anything
of
else.
Patty Smith when he says, when I was in NYC, they were brief visits and I fucked and charged by horrific fights with Amber. I fucked up and drank and got shitty, was so disappointed in myself. You can look at his text to Miss Heard the next day where he says, once again, I find myself in a place of shame and regret. Of course, I am sorry. I really don't know why or what happened. Well, no wonder. You heard the voice on the plane. Of course he doesn't know what happened. But I will never do it again. My illness somehow crept up and grabbed me. I must get better. I love you and feel so bad for letting you down. And what his response has been throughout this trial to things like that is blaming Amber, saying he's just placating her. Is that carrying his burden of proof and showing that abuse hasn't happened even a single time? This is in the lead up to Australia. But before we get there, we can talk about January 25th in Tokyo at the premiere of Mordecai, where he did slam her up against the hallway wall, wailed on her, and he did get on her back in the closet. And what do they say? Look at her backless dress. She doesn't have any bruises. She testified herself that she was checking out pictures because she was concerned that there were. So now their theory is if there's no marks, it didn't happen.
That's not a theory. That's not a theory. You just said, you dumbass. He slammed her up against a wall and was wailing on her back. Wailing on her. The fuck you mean? I'm sorry. What on earth? She was wearing a backless dress and she decided, well, she better check it to see if there's any. Why the hell would she wear a backless dress after something like that, if that actually happened?
Yeah.
And number 2, you wouldn't have to look too damn hard. I mean, it's like, well, just because the bruises weren't there, it means it doesn't mean it didn't happen. Well, yeah, it kind of does. The way that attorney is describing it to the jury, wailing on her back. I mean, if I actually punched somebody on the back like that, especially a woman, I mean, my wife, it's like she gets bruises when she bumps her knee onto a closet door. Like she
Well,
always jokes. She's like, she's always, she's got.
that's
I'm like, if you punched a woman like that, she would have a bruise on her back. It would be that big, and it would be blatantly obvious. I'm sorry, this thing does not make any sense to me.
well, again, I'm not like a medical expert or anything, but I would say slapping can not leave a mark.
Slapping.
Maybe a punch somewhere in the back of the head or something might not leave a mark, but wailing on someone that says marks.
On a
Kneeing them,
woman, on her back, on the,
yeah,
all that bruise is easy. I
and
mean,
I was gonna say maybe it's something about 20 something. I guess she was 20 something at the time, 20 something skin conditions, but my fucking old skin, I always like, well, wake up the next morning, look in the mirror, and go, "Where the hell did that bruise come from?" I don't even remember bumping a nightstand or a closet. I always looked up and see a
I know
bruise.
I'm getting
Going,
that more the older I get
Where
too.
the
Yeah.
fuck that bruise come from?
Coming outside from like cutting the lawn, and I got like a bruise on the side of my leg. What the hell did I hit?
Yeah. And but it's just to say that, and they've made the point that Johnny Depp is bigger and stronger than her.
You know
But
what? And
it's a-
somebody in the chat just said something that's I've heard that. I think that's absolutely true. Mr. E.
What's
Miller
that?
out there, wine thins the blood, so you bruise easier. I believe that is correct. I'm not a physician, but I have heard that from I think physicians before. Well, you think about it. I mean, anytime you drink any kind of alcohol or anything like this, it tends to
yeah.
it's especially as much as she was drinking. I mean, theoretically, yeah, that I could see that. But again, remember at the time this was supposedly going on, Amber Heard is 8 years younger, and she's like maybe 100 pounds soaking
Yeah.
wet. I mean, we are not talking about somebody who is used to getting in the ring. We're not talking about Gina Carano here, folks.
Yeah.
We're not talking about somebody who goes toe to toe in a ring. We're talking about just a regular little 100-pound thin Hollywood starlet, that drinks 2 bottles of wine a day. I mean, this is somebody that probably, if you looked at her funny, got a bruise.
Well, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday, sort of in the cast, that a lot of times prosecutors will do things like that where they have a great case, they know the guy did it, but then they just kind of do that extra little step. They take the little extra thing to falsify something, to plant a little evidence, just to seal the deal, to make sure the scoundrel doesn't get off. And this sort of seemed like what's going on here. Maybe he did slap her once or twice, or maybe slapped her a lot of times or something, but they want to make sure they get it out. So they completely exaggerate it to the point where none of these stories are believable. And it just sort of, in my mind, wipes out any possibility that any of it's credible. It's so ridiculous that I can't believe any of this happened. I mean, all you really have to do is show solid, significant evidence of one single event of abuse, and he loses.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is that it just doesn't seem to be. That's what I keep going back to. I keep going back to this. I can't believe there's not one solid piece of evidence here. Even the most quote unquote damning picture where she's supposedly has, a red
Yeah.
redness. That's all I can say is redness here.
Yeah.
And when that picture came up, I do a lot of photography. I could clearly say, I'm like, all they did was drop the exposure on that about $1.50. And I mean, and then punch up the contrast and pull that natural redness in the face out to make it look far more exaggerated. I mean, that didn't really show any. Again, if somebody had really hit you, it wouldn't be red if you got hit there, especially a man to a woman. That would not be red. That would be purple. That'd be black and blue.
And again, I had an interesting discussion with another person, with another female here in Korea about this trial. Was saying, someone mentioned it, that because when they showed the picture of the scalp, and I've seen the picture 3 or 4 times, and I still don't see anything in the. I just see the swirl, the natural swirl of a hair. I don't see where there's gigantic missing chunks. But someone pointed out that there's like blistery, bruisey things on here, and this woman said, "That looks exactly like my head when I burn it with a curling iron." And I thought, interesting. She said, that's what it looks like when I burn my head with a curling iron.
Yeah.
Okay. I've burned my hair on I burned my hand on curling irons when the ex-wife didn't bother to tell me it had been unplugged 3 seconds before, but I've never burned my scalp with one.
Well, when hair gets ripped out like she described, it would not look like just nice, clean, pretty scalp.
Well, and then
I
what we were
mean,
talking
yeah.
about the other day, there was no hair follicles on those hairs. That was like looked like cut hair to me.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna say it, but yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, because I was looking for like hair follicles to see where it had been ripped out.
Mhm.
They all seemed to be the same length. It was, but yeah,
Her scalp
we're
was
never
too-
going to get through this.
Yeah. Sorry.
I talk too much.
February 2015, this is when they got married. The day they got married, you heard the testimony from Io Tillett, right? That where Mr. Depp told him, I can now punch her anytime I want and no one can do anything about it.
Okay, now it doesn't sound very normal, but guys make those kind of comments just in jest all the time. Oh, we're married now. Now I can commit murder and she can't testify against me. Or, we say stupid shit like this all the time, and I just assume that women might say similar things. But I mean,
They do. I mean, we all do. I mean, I've been with my wife 20 something years now. I have 3 children. And after about the 17th time that I tell one of my teenage daughters to go clean their room and they don't do it, usually about that point, I'm like, if you don't go do it now, I'm going to shoot you.
yeah.
And I mean, it's meaningless.
My
just
dad's
it's
was,
the shit you say.
Yeah, my dad's, I'll kill you and make another one that looks just like you.
Exactly. Every father, every husband, wife, we all do that. Every one of us does that. It doesn't mean anything.
But I mean, we tell you, hey, now if you were punching someone, you wouldn't say, now I can really do it and get away with it. You
would just do it. I mean, if you
yeah.
really were going to do it, you just do it. It didn't happen.
And not tell your friends about it.
Right.
They'll say it's a joke he made on his wedding day.
Yeah.
Then we fast forward to Australia.
We did.
Where Miss Heard is flying from London, where she's filming The Danish Girl, to see her new husband for the first time since their wedding. And these are excerpts from DX 353, all but the bottom.
That was a
right
great Steven Spielberg
are the
movie,
days
wasn't it?
leading up
DX
to
353.
Where he's on a drug-fueled
George Lucas.
bender.
Sorry.
He's
I think
hanging
you
out
may
with
think
Marilyn
THX
Manson.
1138.
He's getting drugs from his
Yeah.
assistants who are enablers. Again, there's a reason you didn't hear them testify in this trial. They're getting him drugs for days and days. And then the one on the bottom right.
This
you'll
looks like a
remember you've seen
poem.
A couple times. This is after he chopped his finger off when he says, need more cocaine and ecstasy.
Having never done ecstasy or cocaine, and having lopped off the bottom of my toe in much a similar way, I wish I would have had cocaine and ecstasy at that point.
And no one, Miss Heard's was in touch with his assistants, but no one told her the hornet's nest that she was walking.
May I be ecstatic
And
again?
we all know what
Hopes.
happened in Australia.
No, we don't.
We all know that Mr. Depp.
And I thought it was a
gets
very
there and
interesting
pulls out that
question,
and
very
they
interesting point they brought
Look
up
at
on during the cross-examination of Amber. She took this picture. She's beat to shit allegedly right now. She's bleeding from she's bleeding from everywhere. She's suffered this violence, and they made the point: you took the picture without you being in the reflection. You took the picture
right?
and weren't in it. If she would have had any injuries on her body and taken 2 steps to the right and been shown in that picture, it would have been game fucking over for Johnny Depp.
Yep. That's the point. That's
Game
the point
fucking
to every
over.
one of these pictures.
And
Every
that was
one of them.
I hadn't noticed until they pointed out that she's not in any of these mirror pictures. Why wouldn't you be?
She didn't say he took 10 at a time. She did say he took 8 to 10 over the course of that period. The second day, Mr. Depp, who claims that Miss Heard refused to do a post-nup, calls Amber's domestic relations attorney, Michelle Mulrooney. You heard from her when he was drunk, and he fired her. And he told Amber for about the 25th time, she said, the only way out of this is death. I don't want a post-nup. And then she said,
What reason would there be for Johnny Depp not to want to pre or post nup? That has never made any sense to me from beginning to end.
I mean, I can understand that they can make the argument that he, wanted to be with somebody that he trusted, and he did trust her, didn't feel like that was necessary. Because I don't know, but
Yeah.
who knows?
Yeah.
She remembered him slamming up against the wall. And I won't go through, you remember her testimony from Australia. You remember her saying that he had her by the neck, squeezing her neck. You remember her saying that he threw her on the games table like a ping pong table. You remember seeing the pictures of that broken table. You remember her saying that at some point
Objects,
he had a
not
bottle
people.
up against her face, and he told her that he'd carve up her face, that he was throwing bottles at her. He's throwing bottles one after another, and I could feel glass breaking behind me, and you've seen the evidence of that. And he was just over and over again smashing the phone into the wall, screaming at me as she watched it break into pieces. Now, she doesn't know how he lost his finger. She said that she saw him smash a phone to pieces, and you heard him get impeached the other day with his testimony from the UK.
No, I don't.
Different from what he testified here, where he said he did smash a phone. And then they tried to put that picture in front of you with a desk phone and suggest that that was it.
I don't think that's what happened. You saw him impeached. I didn't see him impeached. Someone had an interesting conspiracy theory. I believe it was somewhere on Twitter that they were saying that she got out of there the next day. She left Australia the next day. Someone was saying that it would make more sense if she was the abuser, if she was the one that was throwing the bottles and breaking things, and right on the very tail end of her illegally falsifying the documents to illegally smuggle her dogs in, she was already in trouble. And if they had called the police, or if someone had found out that she was menacing him and attacking him with glassware and bottles and things, she would have faced a severe criminal punishment. So therefore they got her out of the country as quickly as possible to avoid that. I mean, it's pure conspiracy theory, but it makes a hell of a lot of sense to me in retrospect as a not unrealistic possibility that Johnny Depp was trying to protect her by getting her out of the country. I mean, that would have been a great thing for him to testify about. So I think there's probably zero truth to it, but it doesn't not make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Just throwing that out into the ether.
Deception.
I'm not saying it happened. I'm saying it didn't, but it was an interesting explanation.
And then you heard Ms. Heard testify that the next morning she found meat that he had left all over the house, but not before what happened.
Objection, speculation, yeah.
That night, where Ms. Heard testified, and I remember trying to get up, and I was slipping on the glass. I was wanting to move. I felt this pressure in my pubic bone. I remember just not wanting to move because I didn't know if it was broken. I didn't know if the bottle that he had inside me was broken.
But you didn't go to the fucking hospital to get checked out because there might be a glass shards inside of you. That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
I would have to imagine that a woman would know if it was broken. I mean, in the same sense that I think a man would know if it went somewhere else and it was broken. It's another one of these things that it just doesn't. I can't.
It's so unrealistic and exaggerated that it fucking pisses me off. It enrages me to hear that bullshit. You don't know if you're being savagely penetrated by a broken whiskey bottle. And then you see that you're bleeding heavily, or allegedly, and then you just go and take a couple of pills to sleep it off. Yeah, that is such bullshit.
I just watched Seven again today. I don't think it works that way because there was that scene in there where stuff happened.
Yeah, and this is the type of thing that I get these comments from the survivors of real abuse. And this is the stuff that enrages them as well. This is the stuff that enrages real survivors because they know it's bullshit.
Well, that's the other side of this. I think that's why things keep gravitating even with women towards Johnny Depp, because it's like, the ones that really have been beaten by their husbands or their boyfriends or something like this are probably looking at her going, bitch, you don't know what you're talking about.
Do you have any Maker's Mark handy for Tuesday? Yeah, I've got to go buy another bottle of Maker's Mark for the jury deliberation day. But no, and I think Camille said it very, very well at the end when this, this violence is somebody's story. It's many people's story. It's not your story.
Right.
I like that she finished with that.
Yep.
This is the next morning.
How
This
much
is what
longer
wrote
does he
when he
go?
stumped with his finger. And
About
there's been testimony about
4 or 5 minutes,
what
I think.
happened to cut the
Okay.
finger off, but frankly, it's irrelevant to your deliberations here. Amber could have chopped it off with an axe. And it has nothing
or more.
to do with whether or not Mr. Depp is
Good
I'm gonna
Lord,
have
he
to be
went.
we
getting
all know she did.
I'm gonna have to be getting to bed soon. That's why.
Good God, yeah.
I wish I
oh
could
my
hang
God.
around longer, but it's after 2 a.m. where I'm at.
Yeah, it's this is going like really long here too.
We talked about control.
I warned the chat that it would get out of control if I started talking.
Well, but it's not a bad thing because there really is a
Yeah.
lot to break down in this. There really is.
Yeah, and I've got to run in about 10 minutes too. But oh my God, I thought he wrapped up a lot earlier than this. But so
I don't
wasn't really
remember how
paying
long
attention.
Elaine went, but I know when he got back up there, he only had 6 minutes.
6 minutes, yeah. And I was thinking it was because she had mismanaged the time so bad. But now that I'm going back through this, it seems like he mismanaged the time badly.
Well, I don't think he counted on Elaine getting up there and pissing away what she did. I think that was I think that's part of the reason
Yeah.
he was probably upset, which is why going back to when I came on, we started with, which is why Elaine got so upset because I'm sure Rottenborn gave her a tongue lashing after
Yeah.
that because he probably expected, and that's why when the judge said, "Okay, you guys, Mr. Depp's team, y'all have 39 minutes." And Mr. Rottenborn, you have 6. And like they exploded
Yeah.
out of the chair. And it was like, wait, what about the sidebar? She's like, oh, no. I didn't count the sidebars. That's just what you have left. And it was like,
All right, we have one more guest joining us here at the tail end. Let's bring him on here. John, welcome. I haven't met you before. There's been texts back and forth and Twitter things. We're with Valiant, Renegade, and myself. Welcome.
Thank you, Legal. Appreciate it. And I apologize for delaying working from my phone. And I have to not wake up some sleeping folks in my house. So
yeah, we're
that's like my house right now.
Yeah, we're unfortunately just at the tail end here, cutting out about 5, 6, 7 minutes. But we've been going over Rottenborn's closing.
oh my God, that was a disaster.
What were your feelings on his closing arguments? Good, bad, and ugly.
Best as he could. It was interesting to me that he sort of changed the entire theory of the case that the jury was listening to for 6 weeks, and he went back to the technical, which I think was their best bet from the beginning. But that's not what they went with.
What are the biggest errors you think he made? Because I was saying I think the biggest errors he's made was he was explaining in detail all these violent, abusive situations, and then he would show pictures of Johnny Depp sleeping. He would talk about the pictures of horrible pictures, episodes of abuse, and then show pictures of a table with Coke on it or a mirror.
But here's the problem: is that he has no actual evidence.
Yeah.
So it's he's doing the best with what he has to work with, and I actually respect that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But the jury's been there for 6 weeks, 7 weeks now, and they've seen all the evidence, and they just have nothing.
Well, and Valiant, what do you think about just his overall performance?
Well, compared to Elaine, shit.
Yeah, that's why I said his. That's why I emphasize his performance. If we put him in a box as a nominal layman,
overall,
how did it affect you?
I think overall, given what he had to work with, I don't know what else he could have done. I think there's a lot of frustration on that team. There's nowhere near the level of cohesion that Johnny's team has. That has become blatantly obvious in the last few weeks. And I think Rottenborn, I'm not going to say he did a phenomenal job. I think he did the best thing he could for his client with what with the material he had to work with. Let's put it that way. And then I think Elaine got up there and Amber herded the bed, and it just all went to pot after that. And I think he had 6 minutes to try to save it.
That's the disaster of this case. Is I think that the lawyers are controlled by their clients in this circumstance because it's bad tactically. It's not their best argument. And I think Roddenborn tried to bring it back to what their best argument is, which is technical realities of defamation. But it's too little too late. And I almost feel bad for him. I think he tried to do a good job, but I think between Elaine and between Elaine and Miss Heard, there was no way to win that.
Well, I think just with his performance, it was a no harm, no foul situation. He didn't help, but I don't think he didn't hurt. He did the best with what he had at his disposal. Tomorrow, when we do the Elaine closing, we'll see how I think she did much more damage than she helped. And we were talking about the cohesion a minute ago, which was so obvious. Going back through the closing and paying more attention than the first time when I was so punch drunk and took a 20-minute nap on camera. That was kind of fun. But when I was going back and watching it, Ben, he choked up twice talking about how hard this has been for his client. And it's not often that a lawyer gets choked up about their client. And then we've seen, everybody hugging and posing for pictures and smiling with each other. And you haven't seen any of that on Amber's side.
Also, I'm wondering, do you think that maybe Roddenborn was hung out to dry a little bit?
And I don't think that their law firm was the first stop on the Amber Heard let's find a lawyer train. I would suspect there was probably a lot better, more qualified, and more expert law firms that didn't want to have anything to do with
different conclusions in terms of strategy.
Yeah, and either she didn't like it or they just wouldn't take the case. But somehow, I think this is just sort of what they ended up with. And there's not the cohesion amongst the team. I don't know if Elaine and Roddenborn are competing with each other necessarily, but they're not in sync at all.
Well, that's what's always really strange to me, because my understanding is Elaine is the principal of the firm.
Yeah, yes, her father started the firm, I believe, if I recall correctly. Someone mentioned it.
You might be right about that. But she certainly is not stewarding it particularly well. Would you hire that firm in a future case? And Roddenborn seems like a competent attorney trying to do his best without overshadowing his boss.
I was talking about this a little bit earlier. I don't know what they like in their normal everyday practice. Commercial lawyers don't like to go to court generally because it's a waste of time and they want to settle and move on to the next case. So I don't think they have a lot of trial experience. If they do, then I definitely wouldn't do it. But I don't know how awesome they are in what they normally do, but they're not that great at trial, it seems.
I mean, Elaine's been absolute garbage on objections. That's been a nightmare for them. Maybe they're very good at what they do, but this is just not the type of case that they should have taken.
Well, Valiant, how would you rate the lawyers from top to bottom, leaving out the minor players like Baby Roddenborn?
That's tough. Again, I don't come from the legal side of things, so
that's why I was asking you. I mean, who affected you the most? Who did you find to be the most persuasive? The one that you would listen to more than the others?
I mean, well, part of it has to do with which attorneys were given which assignments, right? So, I mean, when you have somebody like Dennison, his job was seemingly to explicitly go after the expert witnesses, which I thought he did a pretty good job with that. I like the way he went at him. Yeah, he missed a few swings here and there, but I think overall that was pretty good. Ben Chu kind of seemed to take the lead on most things, but especially when it came to tearing Amber apart on the stand, that was all Camille. She was the standout star. It's for obvious reasons. If you're going to go after a woman who is falsely claiming to be the victim of spousal abuse, you can't have a male attorney go up there and pound on her, from the table to try to break her down. It doesn't look good. Doesn't matter what we think one way or the other. Just it never comes across right. So you have to send somebody up there who is very attractive, smart, and then can do it in such a calm fashion. And Camille hit every one of those bullet points perfectly, and I think she did a great job. I mean, Amber's team again. I don't know if it was. I kind of feel bad saying that. I mean, I don't want to say that they're bad attorneys. It's like Robbie just said. They had a bad client that they're working with. And like we talked about a little earlier, I think that client was pushing the buttons, telling them what she wanted them to do, and they were being put in positions they didn't want
they would have to do it. They
Yeah,
work for the client. If she insists they do something, they can either leave or do it, and it's too late to leave.
Yeah, and like I said before, when
Yeah,
Amber
but
was
there's
on the
a way to
stand,
push on that too, and
Mhm.
it doesn't seem like they did. Because yes, the client's ultimately responsible for strategy, but the basic rules of ethics, the lawyer is responsible for tactics, and I just don't know if they pushed back hard enough.
Well, that's what we were talking about with Nate, the lawyer, the other night. He was saying, yeah, that's true, but the good lawyer would be having the come to Jesus meeting with her and saying,
exactly.
it's gonna do this, and you try to persuade her to change her mind, but she's so alpha that I don't think she could make that change. But well, so Valiant, what I guess I agree with what you're saying, and I would couch it in terms of the team Depp used their lawyers to the best of their abilities in the best situations where they're in their wheelhouse, where they have the expertise and the power to do the task they were assigned, whereas the other side may not have done that so much.
And like I said earlier, I think a big part of that was when you have a client who doesn't listen, and when she gets on the stand, she runs her mouth more than she should. She opens way too many doors for Johnny's team to come in and take her to task. Like we mentioned earlier, the Kate Moss thing was a perfect example.
Perfect example.
Yeah, I mean, Amber could not help herself, and her attorneys told her what not to say.
Yeah.
Don't say this. Do not bring that up. Don't do this, because if you do this, we can't help you. And she probably disregarded every single one of those things. Oh,
we've lost him.
Yes, and we probably lost.
We lost John. Join us again sometime there, John. It was a pleasure having you on for the first time. We'll definitely have you on some more. And I mean, I literally have got to get out of here, and you've got to get sleep.
I do too. Yeah. So
we'll have you on next. I would probably
we'll do it again.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm thinking sometime either tonight or tomorrow. I don't know. I just got to figure out. I'm just so used to not sleeping now that I'm bored if I'm not doing this. I just can't wait till it's over and I can do other things again.
Yeah, normally I'd be asleep by now, but I was so jacked coming back from Top Gun at 1 a.m. So I'm like, all right, let me go say hi. So
we'll bring him back here quickly here to say we lost you and we were just signing off now. Any last words?
I apologize. This is the problem with trying to do it all on your phone.
Yeah.
So
Closing comments.
You're signing off. Closing comments. It's going to be a long weekend. I was actually kind of surprised they didn't come back with a verdict on Friday. But that suggests to me that maybe they have one or two jurors that are averse to giving something.
I would think that, and I said
closing comments, Valiant. Go ahead.
I was just going to say it. I'd just be curious to get everybody's thoughts on this because again, I don't know enough. I feel like the jury is going to have a harder time. I mean, like they're going to decide who's winning in this case pretty quickly. Yeah. I think the longer determination is going to be how much money we giving them. I think it's going to be like they could have already decided Friday. Okay, Johnny wins. Now it's going to take him 2 or 3 more days to figure out what are we actually going to award him in damages. I think that's going to be the much harder question once they get to that point.
My 3 possibilities I see are the money he lost if he would have done the next Pirates movie, the $7 million. Or 14 from the divorce, or they just say we can't figure it out. Here's $1.
And I'd be fine with that. And I actually, respectfully, Valiant, I disagree. I am actually concerned that if they didn't come back quickly, I don't think it's a damages issue. I think there's still a liability question that they're wrestling with.
I don't even know if they got that far. It was only 2 hours, and
Yeah.
she
Maybe, like I
and
said,
the-
y'all know
get
more than me.
liability if you got it.
well, the judge sped read at like 2.5 times speed through the jury instructions in
brilliantly
45
done.
minutes. So I figure if you slow that down by half, and I think they probably just read through the jury instructions to try to figure out what the hell they meant.
You think they did not even deliberate on liability yet at all?
I personally, I don't know, but I don't think so. I think they probably just got the foreman elected. They read through the instructions. They read through the charges maybe and said, all right, let's pick this up on two. I just don't know.
I can't imagine. All right, that's fair. That's a good analysis. I'm
Like I
not
said,
going to
I
fight
don't
you on
know.
that.
Yeah.
I'm guessing.
Yeah, I don't.
Like I
Me
said, I
too.
have no experience with this. So
Well, all right. Anything you want to say on the way out, Valiant? Pleasure
no,
having
thanks
you
for
here
having
again.
me here.
All right,
Good,
we'll
good
do
to
it
see y'all
again.
both. I'm
We'll
gonna
do it,
get
yeah.
to bed and we'll do this again soon.
And I've got to get out to my appointments too. So thanks for both of you for joining. We'll talk to you next time. We'll talk to you a bit later. Always welcome on the streams. Better than just me sitting here and people listening to me talk to myself.
No, thank you for having me.
Pleasure having you on. Everybody, thank you. Remember to like and subscribe because I never remember to tell you to do that. So for those of you that have been reminding others to do it, God bless y'all. You're doing a better job at this than I am. Enjoy your legal vices and have a good weekend.